Chapter 1163. The moment she made her move, the originally noisy crowd instantly quieted down. Among the onlookers, not all were celestial physician, but even if they were martial artists and Xian masters, those who could enter Lingxiao College were all top geniuses in the world. They more or less had a certain understanding of celestial physician, and they could also distinguish between good and bad alchemy skills. So, when Chu Liyue started refining, they were all shocked on the spot. The smoothness of his movements and control of the medicinal herbs were clearly better than Lu Ziyan's. Lu Ziyan was also shocked. Wasn't Chu Yu an 8th grade celestial physician? But the strength he displayed clearly far exceeded that. Lu Ziyan closed his eyes and looked again. Maybe Chu Yu was just bluffing and didn't have any ability at all. When he saw Chu Yu easily separating the medicinal herbs and refining them, the last trace of fantasy in Lu Ziyan's heart was completely shattered. At this time, even if he was unwilling, he had to admit that Chu Yu was indeed capable. A trace of panic faintly appeared in his heart. Maybe Chu Yu could really win against him. Hiss! Suddenly, a burning pain came. Lu Ziyan took a breath of cold air and looked down. Only then did he realize that he was so distracted that he forgot to control the flame in the medicinal cauldron. Just now, it was the flame that leaped out that burned his hand. He wasn't injured, but the medicinal herbs in the medicinal cauldron were already ruined. Looking at the pile of things that were already charred black, Lu Ziyan was burning with anger. He wanted to kick the medicinal cauldron away and smash it on Chu Yu's face. Bang! He fiercely placed his hand on the medicinal cauldron and cleared out all the medicinal herbs. Some ashes flew and scattered. Seeing this scene, many people secretly exchanged glances. This Lu Ziyan's mental endurance was not good. Chu Yu was just standing there. He had just started refining, but he actually accidentally destroyed the medicinal herbs that he had just refined. TSK. If Chu Yu really won, who knew what kind of expression he would have? Lu Ziyan took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Although his previous effort was wasted, he still had spare medicinal herbs in his hands. What he had to do next was to refine his medicinal pill as soon as possible. He began to refine medicine again. Chu Liyue only needed to glance at Lu Ziyan's situation from the corner of his eyes to know what was going on. The corners of her lips curled up slightly as she found it a little funny. He really didn't know why Lu Yintong asked him to come. Did she overestimate Lu Ziyan or underestimate Chu Liyue? He had clearly lost once on the Million Wine Mountain, yet he was still so careless. Wasn't this the same as sending herself to her doorstep to win? Chu Liyue placed the rest of the herbs in an orderly manner. After coming out of Pengmin Mountain, she clearly felt that her strength had increased. Vaguely, he seemed to have touched the threshold of a higher level. Moreover, her spirit also seemed to have improved a lot, which made it easier for her to refine medicine. Time passed slowly. Outside the square, the number of onlookers had also increased. On one hand, there weren't many challenges in the academy, so each time, it would attract a lot of attention. On the other hand, the name Chu Yu had been mentioned a lot in the academy recently. As soon as he came out of Pengmin Mountain, he began to challenge others, and his opponent was obviously stronger than him. Even if everyone wanted to ignore or forget this freshman, it was a little difficult. After receiving the news, Luo Shishir and the others also rushed over. Luo Yinlin even came with them. It's really Chu Yu. After seeing the person standing in the square clearly, Zhusheng couldn't help but exclaim, "What is he thinking? Doesn't he know the rules of the challenge?" If the place had made up his mind to mess with him, he was afraid that, sure, your friend is not very peaceful. Luo Yinlin stared at the field for a while and gave an evaluation. It was rare to see such a student who could cause trouble. Luo Shishir pursed her lips. It's Lu Yintong and the others who want to bully him. That's why he resisted. That day on Million Wine Mountain, it was clearly those people who provoked him and insisted on a competition. After losing, they were unwilling to accept it and sent others to deliberately cause trouble for Chu Yu. From the beginning to the end, Chu Yu didn't do anything wrong. If it was someone else, they might not be in the same situation as Chu Yu and would have been bullied to death. The strong are respected. There's no bullying. Luo Yinlin said lightly. He obviously knows this principle himself. That was why he had agreed to carry out this challenge. Thinking of this, Luo Yinlin suddenly laughed. This kid is a little interesting. If he could really win this round, it wouldn't be others bullying him. It would be him killing the chicken to warn the monkey. Buzz. Suddenly, there was a fluctuation in Chu Liuyue's medicine cauldron. A strong medicinal fragrance spread out from it. Chu Yu is about to form the pill. Someone in the crowd shouted. Almost at the same time, there was a similar movement on Lu Zian's side. The burning flames continued to rise. A spherical pill was faintly discernible. Lu Zian is about to succeed too. I wonder who will succeed first. So what if Chu Yu succeeds first? An 8th grade pill can't be compared to a 9th grade pill. Look at him. He doesn't seem to be in a hurry at all. I wonder if he still has some tricks up his sleeve. Tricks up his sleeve? Could it be that he can also refine a 9th grade pill? The crowd roared with laughter. At this moment, Chu Luiyue on the stage suddenly slapped the medicine cauldron. A cluster of flames wrapped around a fist-sized pill and suddenly flew up. At the same time, she waved her sleeve, and several medicinal herbs fell into the medicine cauldron one after another. This sudden move shocked everyone on the spot. What is he trying to do? He hasn't finished refining the pill, and he's already out of the cauldron? No, he's going to refine the second pill. He hasn't even formed the first pill. How can he refine the second one? Suddenly, a shocked cry came from the crowd. No, he's going to fuse the pill. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience that comes from Love Network. Chapter 1164. Luo Shirshir frowned and couldn't help but murmur. What is pill fusion? Pill fusion is a special method used by Celestial Physician when refining pills. I heard that it can fuse 2 or even more pills and finally condense them into a single pill. This way, all the medicinal effects can be gathered together to the greatest possible extent, thus increasing the grade of the pill. Luo Yinlin patiently explained from the side. Although he wasn't a Celestial Physician, he had stayed in the academy for a few years and still had some understanding of this. Increasing the grade of the pill? Luo Shirshir's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that he really intends to refine a 9th grade medicinal pill? He wants to win, so it's understandable that he would do this. Luo Yinlin laughed. Previously, I thought that if he could win, he could only hope that something would happen to Lu Zian. I didn't expect him to have this second option. In the beginning, he didn't take this Chu Yu to heart, and even had some natural hostility because Luo Shirshir was especially concerned about him. But now he found that this Chu Yu was indeed quite interesting. He had only been in the academy for a short time, and he had already made such a big name. Putting aside the previous things for the time being, as long as he could win today, he would definitely be famous in the entire academy. Luo Shirshir and the others' faces were filled with joy. So, as long as he can succeed, the chances of winning are also very high. Luo Yinlin saw the smile on her face and couldn't help but reach out his hand, lightly flicked her forehead, and snorted. Don't be so optimistic. I only said that he wanted to fuse the pill, but I didn't say that he would definitely be able to do it. One had to know that when refining pills, the most important thing was to be completely focused. If you want to fuse the pill, you must at least be able to multitask. He was an 8th grade Celestial Physician. If he wanted to defeat Lu Zian, he would have to refine at least 2 superior 8th grade pills. Luo Shirshir and the others' expressions froze. To refine 2 superior 8th grade pills at the same time, not to mention an 8th grade Celestial Physician, even in 9th grade would be quite difficult, right? In any case, so far, I have never heard of an 8th grade Celestial Physician being able to complete the pill fusion. Luo Yinlin's words made their hearts sink, and they all looked at the field worriedly. That 16-year-old boy, could he really do it? Chu Liuyue separated a ball of flame from his side and wrapped it around the pill he had just refined. About half an arm's length above the cauldron, he quietly refined it and carried out the final refinement. On the other side, she was still continuously adding new medicinal herbs into the medicinal cauldron. When Lu Zian looked up, he saw such a scene. He gritted his teeth as the hatred in his heart grew. You overestimate yourself. He cursed under his breath. An 8th grade celestial physician. Do you know what it means to fuse pills? Forcing it was just showing off. In the end, he might not even be able to refine a single 8th grade medicinal pill. However, as time passed, nothing out of the ordinary happened on the other side. Throughout the entire process, Chu Luiyue did it in an orderly manner. The pill at the top was constantly being condensed, and the medicinal herbs below were also being refined one after another. Soon, Chu Luiyue actually began to smoothly refine the second pill. Lu Ziyan forced himself to retract his gaze and put all his attention on his own pill. However, in his heart, there was always a faint sense of anxiety and uneasiness, as if something bad was about to happen. When his mind was in chaos, the flame in the medicinal cauldron also fluctuated. His heart jumped fiercely, and he quickly stabilized it. Fortunately, the pill seemed to be fine. However, Lu Ziyan's heart still sank. When refining pills, the last step was very important, and it required even more concentration than before. If there was a slight mistake, it would cause irreparable consequences and affect the quality of the entire pill. More seriously, it could even cause the pill to be destroyed. Although this one of his pills could succeed, the quality was gritting his teeth. Lu Ziyan still controlled the flame and carried out the final roasting and refining. 1. An astonishing fluctuation reverberated in the medicinal cauldron. At the same time, a rich medicinal fragrance filled the air. A vermilion red pill flew out from the medicinal cauldron. Lu Ziyan was already prepared. With a wave of his wrist, he set up a barrier above. That pill fiercely hit the barrier, and it quickly bounced back. Lu Ziyan waved his sleeve and quickly kept that pill into a jade box. Gotcha! The jade box closed. The pill was formed. Holding the jade box in his hand, Lu Ziyan let out a sigh of relief. It was daunting, but not dangerous. This pill was finally formed. Now, the outcome of the competition depended on Chu Yu on the opposite side. Looking at Lu Ziyan's expression, everyone guessed that he should have successfully refined the large success pill. In other words, the current him had a 9th grade lower grade pill as a foundation. If Chu Yu failed to refine the pill, or the final pill was not 9th grade lower grade, then the winner of this competition would be Lu Ziyan. But if he succeeded in refining the pill, and the grade was higher than Lu Ziyan's, then some people thought of this and could not help but secretly shake their heads. How could it be? A mere 8th grade celestial physician, Chu Yu, could not possibly have such ability. Chu Luiyue was focused on refining the pill, turning a deaf ear to everything around her. Once, when she was still in Shangguanyu, she was quite good at refining pills and had a lot of experience. But after her rebirth, she never did it again. Today, it was because she wanted to win against Lu Ziyan that she had this idea. Based on her current strength, refining a grade 8 medicinal pill was not a problem. But 9th grade pills were a bit difficult. Instead of taking the risk, it was better to use a more reliable method, refining the pill. This method had a slightly lower requirement for the celestial physician's strength. Only the technique and attention requirements were higher, which was just right for her now. Of course, if the people present knew that she was thinking like this, they would probably have the heart to beat her, because it was precisely these that were the biggest test for a celestial physician. For martial artists and cultivators, if their talent was not enough, they could still make up for it with diligence. But celestial physician could not. Every step of a celestial physician's cultivation, every breakthrough, was closely related to the level of the cultivator's talent. For example, the same prescription, different celestial physician would have different effects. Only those with good talent and spirituality could bring out the greatest effect of this prescription. And a celestial physician's technique, sensitivity, perception, and so on were all included in the word talent. Some people, even if they practiced hundreds of times, might not be as good as others practicing once. And Chu Luiyue was such a person. Why is there a group of people gathered over there? On the Dongwang Bell Tower, a few elders were sitting together. Hearing the movement, One of them looked down. It seems that there are students in a challenge. Wait, Wanzheng, come and take a look. That seems to be your new disciple. Elder Wanzheng heard the sound and walked over. Suddenly, his expression froze, and his brows slowly furrowed. This technique, why does it look a little familiar? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1165. He looked carefully at the young man who was refining pills. His movements were smooth and skillful. It was clearly an extremely tense challenge, but from his body, there didn't seem to be the slightest bit of nervousness. Elder Wanzheng narrowed his eyes, his expression turning serious. The familiar feeling in his heart grew stronger and stronger. Is it really Chuyu? Wasn't he locked up in Min Mountain? Why is he? Wanzheng, I thought your disciple was obedient. I didn't expect him to be so stubborn. He just finished his punishment, and now he's fighting. The other elders also walked over and watched the competition with great interest. Hey, he seems to be refining pills. Suddenly, the elder who had first noticed the competition turned his head in surprise and glanced at Elder Wanzheng. Wanzheng, he didn't learn anything from you after he entered the school, right? Elder Wanzheng knew what he meant, so he replied, I didn't teach him how to refine pills. Oh, that's rare. The surrounding elders exchanged glances with each other when they heard this. Then, they began to laugh in an unknown manner. Most people wouldn't teach an 8th grade celestial physician how to refine pills, right? Yeah, I only started learning after I became a 9th grade celestial physician a year ago. Hey, but this kid's refining skills are smooth and skillful. I think he's even better than a 9th grade celestial physician. Wanzheng, you've got a good seed. The elders teased. Elder Wanzheng didn't say anything. He knew Chuyu was talented, but he didn't expect him to be so good. If you remember correctly, he was only 16 years old this year. If he were to succeed in this round of pill fusion, for some reason, a figure suddenly appeared in Elder Wanzheng's mind. He had the same amazing talent, and he kept getting into trouble. He clenched his fists in his sleeves. At this time, Lu Zian had finished refining pills and was waiting with the crowd. In the cauldron, the second pill was formed. As time slowly passed, the two pills finally condensed to the same size. Bang! Chu Luiyue slammed his palm down. An orb of flame wrapped around the second medicinal pill and flew up. The two pills floated in the air, facing each other. Seeing this scene, everyone unconsciously held their breaths. Here it comes. Chu Yue's eyes were fixed on the screen, and his mind was highly concentrated. This was the first time after her rebirth that she had directly tried to fuse her core. She had to win this round. Estimating that the temperature of the two flames had been adjusted, she took a deep breath. Two vigorous forces surged out from his dantian. Then, he poured it into his two hands. Boom! Boom! Two blazing flames instantly enveloped her hands. At the same time, she quickly raised her hands and controlled each of them. Then, she forcefully fused them together. As the two pills approached each other, they began to crazily repel each other. The flames around his body also started to become restless. Chu Luiyue did not hesitate in the slightest. He continued to increase his strength. The two medicinal pills approached at an extremely slow speed, and when their flames touched one another, whoosh, sparks flew everywhere. The light was dazzling. Chu Yue's arms began to tremble slightly. She clenched her teeth and crazily urged the force in her body. Boom! On her hands, the flames burned even more fiercely. Under such strong movements, the flames of the two medicinal pills finally began to fuse. Lu Zian's heart seemed to have been ruthlessly knocked by something. A strong sense of uneasiness quickly filled his heart. Suddenly, between the two flames, there was a sound. Then, the flames that had begun to fuse actually separated from the middle again. At the same time, the two medicinal pills also began to slowly withdraw. Lu Zian's eyes brightened. I'm going to fail. If a celestial physician could not adjust the state of the two medicinal pills and forcefully fuse them, it would only lead to the complete destruction of the medicinal pills. Now, this was the situation. He could not help but laugh, his eyes full of ridicule. Blindly showing off could only lead to such a result. He already knew that Chuyu, a mere 8th grade celestial physician, could not do it. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, the 2 medicinal pills in the hands of the youth opposite him had already completely separated. Moreover, the flames on them gradually dimmed. Lu Ziyan clenched the jade box in his hands. His heart was already surging with ecstasy. This round, he would definitely win. What a pity. On the Dongwang Bell Tower, several elders were also watching the competition below. Seeing this scene, they could not help but reveal a look of regret. Just a little bit more. In the end, he is an 8th grade celestial physician. His own strength is greatly lacking. It is indeed difficult to rely on technique to win. Another elder gave a fair evaluation and then looked at Wan Zheng, who was next to him. Seeing that he was only staring at the competition below, without a change in expression and not saying a word, the elders thought that he was unhappy because his disciple was about to lose. Well, no one would be able to laugh about this matter. Moreover, this was a challenge. Losing was not the most important thing. If the opponent did not let Chuyu off, then it would be troublesome. According to the rules, even if they were elders, it was not good for them to interfere. Wan Zheng, this time Chuyu lost. Don't be disappointed. Actually, Chuyu's talent and potential are very outstanding. In time, he will definitely surpass the person opposite him. One of the elders consoled. With your guidance, this child will definitely have a place on the green cloud roll in the future. Elder Wan Zheng shook his head. He won't lose. Although his voice was calm, his tone was very determined. This was not a question, but a statement. Moreover, it was an extremely confident statement. The elders looked at each other. What was Wan Zheng saying? Chuyu won't lose? However, they could clearly see that the kid had already lost control of the 2 pills. Once the flames on them were completely extinguished, he would... How could this be? Suddenly, an elder's exclamation was heard. When the others heard that, they immediately looked over. When they saw the situation below, they all fell into a dead silence. On the spacious square, the youth who had already shown signs of weakness did not lose in a logical manner. On the contrary, the flames on the 2 pills in front of him actually burned wildly. The momentum was even more turbulent than before. He pressed his hands down with force. The 2 balls of flames instantly merged. At the same time, the 2 pills wrapped in them instantly merged with each other. Chu Luiyue shouted, "Condense!" A shockingly rich, medicinal fragrance burst out from within. The flames on her hands had completely enveloped the pill. In the next moment, the pill rushed out of the flames, trying to escape. Chu Luiyue tiptoed and actually flew up, taking the pill back. She quickly put it into the jade box that she had prepared earlier. Click! The jade box was sealed. Chu Luiyue landed lightly, her clothes fluttering. She raised the jade box in her hand and smiled at the pale-faced Lu Zi and in front of her. Senior Lu, want to compete? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1166. Dead silence. Everyone looked at the smiling young man. They were all shocked and speechless for a moment. Success. He actually succeeded in fusing the pill. This is impossible. Lu Ziyan suddenly shouted. He stared at Chu Luiyue. His eyes were burning with anger. It was as if he wanted to burn a hole in Chu Luiyue's body. There is definitely a problem with your pill. Chu Luiyue was not angry. Even the smile on his face did not waver. Since senior brother Lu is so sure, why don't you verify it yourself? Seeing Chu Luiyue's confident look, Lu Ziyan's heart became more and more uneasy. His heart seemed to be tightly gripped by something. He saw clearly just now that Chuyu was clearly about to fail. But who would have thought that he would actually turn the tide? Lu Zi, and kept comforting himself in his heart. Impossible. Even a 9th grade celestial physician would be helpless in that situation, let alone Chuyu. Even if his pill did not seem to have any problems. But with such a large fluctuation, he did not believe that it was a completely intact pill. This Chuyu, he was most likely pretending to be calm. Thinking of this, Lu Ziyan's mood calmed down. He calmed himself down and walked forward. It seems that junior brother Chu Yu is very confident in himself. Lu Ziyan coldly said, "Since that is the case, why don't you take it out first?" Chu Luiwe smiled. "Senior brother Lu, let's finish refining first. You go first." Lu Ziyan gritted his teeth. He was more and more sure that this kid in front of him was guilty. He coldly snorted and picked up his jade box. Everyone's gazes were focused on it. Then, Lu Ziyan opened the jade box. A vermilion pill the size of a longan fruit was lying quietly within. Everyone could clearly see the lines on it. It was indeed a 9th grade lower pill. "Did you see it clearly?" Lu Ziyan's tone was somewhat impatient. Just as he was about to close the jade box, Chu Luiwe suddenly spoke. "Wait." Lu Ziyan frowned. "Is there anything else?" Chu Luiwe pointed at his jade box. "Senior brother Lu, there seems to be something wrong with your pill." Lu Ziyan's face slightly changed. "What nonsense are you talking about? That medicinal pill, just now, was a 9th grade lower grade medicinal pill. Everyone saw it clearly. What problem could there be?" His voice was tinged with impatience and irritation. Chu Yue's expression did not change, and his smile was gentle. "Senior brother Lu, although I'm only an 8th grade celestial physician, I can't compare to a 9th grade doctor like you. But I've seen grade 9 pills before. The quality of your pill, just now, seemed to be a little off. I wonder if senior marshal brother Lu would mind picking up the pill and letting everyone take a closer look." Lu Ziyan's heart jumped. This kid, how could he tell? "Why do you have a question, my pills?" Lu Ziyan gripped the jade box tightly and asked gloomily. Chu Luiwe blinked. "This is a challenge. Isn't it normal to take out the pill for everyone to see clearly? Senior marshal brother Lu is so resistant. Could it be that you don't dare?" Lu Ziyan choked. In front of everyone, it was indeed difficult for him to refuse. He was so angry that he laughed. "Good. Since that's the case, don't forget later, you have to do the same." Chu Luiwe smiled and nodded, pushing the boat with the current. "Of course. Senior marshal brother Lu, please." This time, Lu Ziyan was in a difficult position. He gritted his teeth, opened the jade box again, and took out the pill inside. "Hey, there seems to be a spot on that pill." Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the crowd. Lu Ziyan looked at that person fiercely with a fierce gaze. The person who spoke hurriedly kept quiet, but everyone had already heard this sentence. Moreover, everyone's eyesight was quite good. Even if that person did not say it, they could see that there was indeed a dark spot on the pill. In fact, that spot was only the size of a mung bean. Moreover, it was very inconspicuous on this vermilion red pill. But this meant that the quality of this medicinal pill had already been greatly reduced. Hiss! So Lu Ziyan's pill was not refined at all? With such a large spot, can this pill still be considered a 9th grade pill? The medicinal strength is mixed and unevenly distributed. Such a pill, even if it's a 9th grade pill, the effect won't be good, right? The crowd discussed animatedly. Some celestial physician gave an extremely sharp evaluation. Lu Ziyan's face was red and white, as if he was being tortured. He had been worried about this problem before, but he did not expect it to be like this in the end. He wanted to muddle through, but who knew that Chu Yu was so treacherous and cunning? He braced himself and received everyone's various gazes, looking at Chu Luiwe with resentment and anger. "You, now it's time for you to take out the pill and let everyone judge." Chu Luiwe slightly raised his eyebrows, opened the jade box without hesitation, and took out the pill. That pill was the same size as an ordinary pill, but the color was very strange. Dark green and light blue. 2 colors, each occupying half. The boundary was clear, and the color was rich. Moreover, the surface of the pill was smooth and flat, suffused with a faint luster. With one look, one could tell that the medicinal strength was fused extremely well. But this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that the lines on the surface were exactly the same as Lu Ziyan's previous large success pill. The pill that Chu Luiwe refined was clearly a 9th grade lower pill. When he saw the perfect color and shape of the pill, Lu Ziyan's heart was very uneasy. This uneasiness, when he saw the same level of lines, surged to the extreme. Almost in an instant, he already knew that this round he had lost. The last trace of blood on his face faded away with a swish. The surrounding crowd, after a short moment of silence, suddenly exploded. Ninth grade lower pill. Chu Yu's pill is actually a ninth grade lower pill. Moreover, this appearance is clearly stronger than Lu Ziyan's. Doesn't this mean that he won this round? I really couldn't tell that Chu Yu was actually so strong. To be able to enter Elder One Zheng's eyes, of course, he is not an ordinary person. Lu Ziyan originally wanted to rely on his status as a ninth grade celestial physician to crush the other party. Who would have thought that he would fail? This time, I'm afraid that his face has been completely thrown away. All kinds of voices came one after another. Lu Ziyan's heart was beating wildly. His face was burning with pain. How could he have thought that Chu Yu would actually succeed? Just now, he was still thinking that Chu Yu's pill must have a problem. But now that he saw it with his own eyes, he could clearly see that Chu Yu's pill was indeed more outstanding than his. He couldn't even refute a single word. Chu Lua looked at him. "Senior Lu, have you seen it?" Lu Ziyan ground his teeth and said hatefully, "You win." After saying that, he fiercely swung his sleeves and was about to leave. "Wait." Chu Yu's voice came from behind. Lu Ziyan turned his head, his brows tightly knitted, his eyes filled with disgust. "What else do you want?" Chu Lua laughed, his eyebrows curved, and slowly said, "Did I say that this round is over?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1167. Lu Ziyan was startled. The crowd quietened down and looked at Chu Luiwei in confusion. What did he mean? He didn't want it to end? But the competition was already over, and he even won. What was the point of continuing? You still want to continue? Lu Ziyan's brows furrowed even tighter. I've already admitted defeat. What else do you want? Chu Luiwei smiled innocently. The so-called challenge competition requires both sides to agree to end the competition, isn't it? Looking at the youth's smile, Lu Ziyan's heart suddenly sank. He faintly felt that he had been tricked. You still want to compete in alchemy? Not to mention that he had already won, there was no need to continue. Even if they really had another match, the two of them didn't have much energy left. Who said we want to compete in alchemy? Chu Luiwei said in surprise. Isn't the challenge competition free to play? Don't tell me you still want to fight? Lu Ziyan seemed to have heard a joke and ridiculed. He sized up Chu Luiwei with undisguised contempt in his eyes. If I remember correctly, you're only at the early stage of rank 7, right? With this bit of strength, you still want to fight with me? It was normal for him to look down on Chu Luiwei's level. After all, the Academy's entry standard for martial artists was rank 9 martial artists. Even if some Xian master and celestial physician weren't good at this, most of them weren't weak. Chu Luiwei was at the early stage of rank 7 and was undoubtedly at the bottom of the list in the Academy. Although Lu Ziyan didn't have much talent as a martial artist, he was still an expert at the early stage of rank 8. To deal with Chu Luiwei, who was at the early stage of rank 7, was a piece of cake. Moreover, a martial artist competition was fought with real swords and spears. Without real ability, it was impossible to win by relying on unorthodox means. Obviously, from Lu Ziyan's point of view, Chu Luiwei took the initiative to make such a request because he wanted to use some underhanded means to win. Otherwise, he really couldn't imagine how Chu Luiwei could bridge the huge gap between the two of them. It's a challenge match anyway. But one more round. Hearing Chu Luiwei's affirmative answer, Lu Ziyan almost laughed out loud. Are you sure? Chu Luiwei nodded seriously. Senior martial brother Lu, please. Lu Ziyan let out a ha. Good. Then I'll fight with you. What is Chu Yu thinking? Not only did he win one match, he even wants to continue. Moreover, it's a martial arts competition. Early stage, 7th stage. It's not that I look down on him, but his strength is too low. This time, if things don't go well, Lu Ziyan might be able to get back all the humiliation he suffered before. Luo Yanlin suddenly asked. How is his battle prowess? Luo Sure didn't expect her fourth brother to take the initiative and shook her head. We've never seen him fight, so we're not too sure. Luo Yinlin pondered for a moment. Do you know where he came from? Luo Sure and the others shook their heads together. Chuyu didn't seem to like to talk about this. He had always been secretive, so they didn't ask much. But he has a very powerful Yuan tool on him. After we entered the academy, the Yuan tools we used to hide our aura were useless, but Chuyu didn't seem to be affected. Even Elder Wensi and the others didn't recognize it. Luo Yinming suddenly said. Oh, Luo Yinlin was surprised. There aren't many people who can have Yuan tools of this level. There were two possibilities. Firstly, Chuyu had unintentionally obtained that Yuan instrument through a fortuitous encounter. Second, he came from an extremely powerful family, and his position was extremely high. Their Luo family was also a first-rate family. If they didn't have Yuan tools of this level, then they definitely did. It was just that this item was extremely precious, and they might not be able to get it. Even he didn't have such a treasure when he first came to the academy, let alone Luo Sure and the others. Luo Yinlin thought to himself and looked at the arena again. That young man stood tall and straight. Although his face was still a little immature, the expression between his brows was calm and collected. His temperament didn't seem like a nameless person. Lu Yintong and the others might have kicked a metal plate this time. Wanzhong. On the Dongwang Bell Tower, a few elders were still watching the competition. One of them saw that Elder Wanzhong was in a daze and didn't know what he was thinking, so he called out to him. Elder Wanzhong snapped back to reality. What's wrong? What do you mean what's wrong? We want to ask you what's wrong. One of the elders laughed. What are you thinking about? You're so engrossed. Elder Wanzhong frowned and shook his head. Nothing. Don't think about it. Let's look at your disciple first. Not only did he win the alchemy competition, but he also wants to continue fighting with others. The elders were shocked when they saw that Chu Luiwei had successfully fused the pills and won the competition. After the shock, they were filled with envy and jealousy towards Wanzhong. Chu Yu's talent as a celestial physician was greater than they had expected. If they had known, they would have fought for it on the first day of the month. Elder Wanzhong followed their gazes and looked down. As expected, the two of them had put away their cauldrons and were facing each other from a distance, preparing to compete. One of the elders suddenly laughed. Wanzhong, not only is your disciple talented as a celestial physician, but he's also good at causing trouble. I guess you'll be busy in the future. It was a joke, but in Elder Wanzhong's ears, it was as if a layer of fog had been lifted. Something seemed to have flashed through his mind. However, before he could think clearly, Lu Xian's furious voice came from below. Absolutely not. With his thoughts in a mess, Elder Wanzhong frowned and looked down. On the square, the two of them faced each other. Lu Xian's face was flushed red, and he was agitated. He pointed at Chu Luiwei. To be more precise, he was pointing at the small one on her shoulder. Although it was red and furry and looked very cute, everyone present knew that it was Chu Luiwei's contracted divine beast, red-tailed red phoenix. Moreover, this one had clearly defeated Lu Yintong's contracted divine beast before. It was obvious how strong its combat power was. If he were to really go against it, as a rank 8 warrior, Lu Xian would only have a dead end. This competition is between the two of us. If you use your contracted magical beast, it's cheating. Because of his nervousness, Lu Xian's voice was particularly sharp. Since the magical beast is contracted with the cultivator, they are partners. Living and dying together and fighting together is a matter of course. Why are you saying that I can't summon it now? Chu Luiwei tapped Dumpling's head and chuckled casually. Why don't you call your contracted magical beast out for a battle? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1168. Lu Xian choked in her chest and almost spat at the person in front of her. Bah, he really had the nerve to say such things? He even wanted him to summon a contract magical beast. If he also contracted a divine beast, of course he wouldn't have any qualms. But how could there be so many divine beasts in the world? Even Lu Yintong's was something that he had painstakingly asked for, and her divine beast had previously lost to Chu Yu. If it weren't for that bet, there wouldn't be such a mess today. In front of such a tyrannical divine beast, his contracted ninth-grade magical beast might not even be able to withstand 3 moves. Anyway, I don't agree. This competition can only be fought by the 2 of us. The smile on Chu Yu's face faded a little. Her expression was restrained like this, and there was a faintly discernible cold pressure that spread out. Immediately, a cold and indifferent voice entered his ears. I said, "Let's compete like this." Lu Zi met that pair of cold and calm eyes, and his heart inexplicably felt a chill. Under the gaze of that pair of eyes, he inexplicably felt that he had become incomparably small and unconsciously felt reverence in his heart. He shuddered. How could a teenager have such a gaze? He still wanted to refute, but for some reason, those words were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say anything. He gritted his teeth. Fine, let's compete. As long as he let the contracted magical beast stall the red-tailed phoenix, he could quickly finish off Chu Yu and still win. Wind Owl Bird. He roared loudly, and the force around his body surged. Above his head, a huge bird beast quickly appeared. That bird beast's body was brightly colored, and its main color was dark blue. There were 9 white feathers on its head, and a pair of orange eyes, cold and indifferent. A 9th-grade magical beast. In fact, a 9th-grade magical beast level was not low, but in a place like Lingxiao College, where the top powerhouses and geniuses gathered, it was very ordinary, especially when the opponent was a real divine beast. The red-tailed phoenix with an extremely strong bloodline. Dumpling lazily opened its eyes. Perhaps it was because it had absorbed the power of Tianlei, but Chu Luiyue felt that its aura was different from before. Dumpling's beautiful eyes swept over them. A trace of fear appeared in the eyes of the wind glutton bird. That was the absolute pressure that came from his bloodline. Lu Ziyan naturally felt the subtle change in his contracted magical beast mood, and couldn't help but be even more annoyed. Go! He let out a stern shout. As long as he could stop that red-tailed red phoenix for a moment, he would definitely be able to take care of Chu Yu. Although the wind's talk bird was afraid, it could not disobey its master's orders. It flapped its wings and flew forward. Almost at the same time, Lu Ziyan's figure also disappeared from the spot. I didn't expect to see 2 celestial physicians fighting like this in a challenge. An early stage 7th order and an early stage 8th order, huh? I haven't seen a competition of this level in a long time. Interesting. I really don't know what that Chu Yu is thinking. Since he won, he should just end it beautifully. Why do he have to deliberately make things difficult for himself? Don't say, if I had such a red-tailed red phoenix, I would dare to do the same. So what if he has a divine beast? If his own strength is not enough, it will also limit the divine beast performance. In the end, it's not certain who will win or lose. If Lu Ziyan's speed is fast enough, there is still a high chance that he can win this round. Many of the surrounding martial artists were obviously interested, and each of them had different opinions. Chu Luiyue, who was on the field, more or less heard these words. Lu Ziyan's confidence increased greatly, but when he looked ahead, the youth's expression was still indifferent, as if he did not take those words to heart. Pretend. Lu Ziyan cursed in his heart. Let's see if he will still have such a calm and aloof expression when he is beaten to the point that he is looking for his teeth on the ground. At this moment, Dumpling had already flown up and faced the wind glutton bird head-on. Thus, in Lu Ziyan's line of sight, there was only Chu Luiyue left. He almost laughed out loud. Without the divine beast protection, Chu Yu had even less of an advantage. He was simply full of flaws. Wind Thunder Fist. He mobilized the force in his body and poured it all into his right fist. Immediately, he fiercely punched forward. The wind from the fist whistled. The void shook. For this punch, Lu Ziyan used all his strength. He had to end this battle quickly. Chu Luiyue stood in her original position. Her footsteps slightly moved back half a step, and her knees were slightly bent. She bent her arm, pulled back, accumulated strength, and slowly clenched her fist. It was clearly an extremely ordinary action, but when she did it, it was incomparably smooth and pleasing to the eye. It was as if all the blood, flesh, tendons, and bones in her body were perfectly mobilized. In front of her, Lu Ziyan's fist was already in front of her. The biting, cold, and terrifying pressure raised her hair, and her clothes fluttered. This astonishing power almost made people wonder if this punch would directly explode the opponent's head if it hit the face. Chu Yoyue's face was suffused with a layer of coldness. She stared straight at Lu Ziyan, who was opposite her, without any fear in her eyes. Immediately, without any hesitation, she punched out. The simplest, the most direct punch. Bang! Two fists collided. Kacha! The sound of bones breaking could be heard. The next moment, the complacent look on Lu Ziyan's face quickly disappeared, and replacing it was extreme pain. At this moment, Elder Wan Zheng, who was standing on top of the Eastern Emperor Bell Tower, narrowed his eyes. Unconsciously, he took a step forward and tightly held onto the railing with one hand. This fist technique, he had seen it before. Digression. It's almost the end of the month. There is still a quota for this month's star of long reviews. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1169. The two of them were in a stalemate. However, one of them looked indifferent while the other's facial features were distorted. Lu Ziyan took a deep breath as he stared at Chu Luiyue in disbelief and horror. Ew, how could a rank 7 warrior have such terrifying physical strength? With this punch, he thought he would be able to finish off his opponent, but he did not expect that he would break his hand first. An intense pain came from his hand, almost causing his vision to turn black. He subconsciously wanted to retract his fist, but the young man in front of him suddenly raised the corner of his lips. That smile was extremely faint and cold. Lu Ziyan shuddered as all the hair on his body stood up. He did not even think and immediately retreated. However, it was too late. Chu Luiyue took the lead to change his fist into a palm and clamp down on his wrist, and immediately bent upwards. Crack! Another bone-crunching sound rang out. Lu Ziyan finally could not hold it in and let out a shrill scream as cold sweat kept coming out from his forehead. Seeing his hand being forced into a strange position, the onlookers were all shocked. In fact, they had seen much more bloody scenes than this. But what made them feel cold was that when the young man on the field was doing this, his expression was so calm. Even the corner of his mouth had a faint smile. It was as if breaking a person's hand was no different from breaking a piece of wood to him. To be able to have such a reaction, it was either his natural disposition was cold and callous, or he was used to such scenes, so he did not take it to heart. But no matter which one it was, it contained the same logic. This person was not to be trifled with. Lu Ziyan was about to use his force to resist, but Chu Luiyue had already lifted his leg and kicked him in the chest. Pooh! Lu Ziyan flew out and landed heavily on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned ashen. He used his other arm to struggle to get up, but after a few attempts, he did not succeed. At the same time, his breathing became heavier and heavier. Like an old bellows, he could only gasp for air. It was as if there were countless needles piercing his chest. The pain was unbearable. Lu Ziyan's heart was filled with hatred. This was the result of Chu Yu's kick. If he hadn't experienced it personally, he wouldn't have believed that a rank 7 warrior could be so strong in close combat. Just as he tried to stand up again, but failed and fell to the ground, a pair of black deerskin boots appeared in his line of sight, as well as a fluttering corner of clothes. His movements suddenly stopped. Only his heart was beating wildly, as if it was about to jump out of his chest. He raised his head slowly, and with great difficulty, he saw that familiar face. Looking at that youthful face and that pair of eyes that seemed to be like a black pool that could never be seen through, Lu Ziyan's heart suddenly surged with an unprecedented fear. At this moment, he suddenly realized that this young man was not someone he could provoke. Chu Luiyue looked down at him and clicked his tongue. Rank 8 warrior. Aren't you a little too impatient? She thought that Lu Zi and could at least resist for a while, but who knew that with one punch, he couldn't stand it. Compared to the puppets of the same rank that she fought with when Bao trained her, it was like heaven and earth. What Chu Luiyue didn't know was that those puppets were meticulously refined by Bao. Other than the fact that they didn't have any force, they were the best in all aspects. She was used to fighting with those puppets, so it was naturally easy for her to fight against such a puppet. Hearing her words, everyone's heart skipped a beat and looked at her strangely. Impatient. He is at least one rank higher than you. You're going too far by saying that. No one could understand the fear in Lu Zi's heart. Just now, the other party only used 2 moves and almost didn't use any force, and he was directly crippled. This Chu Yu's physical strength could be said to be terrifying. Previously, he only thought that he was talented as a celestial physician and was mediocre as a warrior, so he shouldn't be a concern. Who knew that he was such a pervert? Lu Ziyan felt that half of his life was about to be kicked away by that kick. Bang! Suddenly, a muffled sound came from the side. Something fell to the ground, and even the ground shook. Lu Ziyan turned his head to look, and his breathing stagnated. It was his contracted magical beast, the wind squawk bird, which was directly beaten to the ground by the red-tailed phoenix's wings. Looking carefully, the feathers on the wind squawk bird's body were also charred black and messy. It looked very miserable. Chu Luiyue turned his head, and the corner of his lips curled up slightly. Dumpling, I'm faster than you this time. Dumpling stepped on the wind squawk bird's face fiercely. Then, it flew to Chu Luiyue's shoulder and squatted down. Hearing Chu Luiyue's words, its bright eyes flashed with a trace of dissatisfaction. It was because it had swallowed the Tianlei's power. The bloodline power in its body was preparing to awaken. It took some time to adjust the power in its body, which was why it was late. Otherwise, it would definitely be faster. Chu Luiyue nodded its head and looked at Lu Ziyan meeting that pair of smiling eyes. He suddenly had an idea and shouted with difficulty, I admit defeat. I really admit defeat. I don't want to fight anymore. If he continued to fight, what would he do with the remaining half of his life left here? His words, which were filled with fear and pleading, caused everyone to completely quiet down. This scene was really strange. The two of them, one standing and one lying down, one high and one low. It should have been a competition without any suspense, but at this moment, the one begging for mercy was the higher-level Lu Zi, and even half a quarter of an hour ago, no one would have believed that things would develop in such a direction. In the dead silence, only Lu Zi's begging voice was exceptionally clear. Chu Luiyue tilted his head. You admit defeat? Yes, I lost. I'm not as good as you, and I accept my loss wholeheartedly. You don't want to fight anymore? I don't want to fight anymore. Facing Chu Luiyue's questions, Lu Ziyan answered every question very quickly, without the slightest hesitation. Seeing that Chu Luiyue seemed to be lost in thought, a glimmer of hope rose in his heart, and he added, I promise in the future, in the academy, I will never fight with you again. Chu Luiyue touched his chin. Ugh, it seems that you really don't want to fight anymore. Lu Ziyan swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. At this moment, he could no longer care about Lu Yintong's reminder to teach Chu Yu a lesson. His heart was filled with thoughts of getting out of the current situation as soon as possible. Yes, I really won't disturb you anymore. I promise. Lu Ziyan hurriedly took out his black jade token as a guarantee. You don't want to fight anymore. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly and suddenly smiled. A glimmer of light flashed in his eyes, and he was as sly as a fox. He whispered, How can there be such a good thing? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1170. Lu Ziyan's expression instantly froze. He looked at Chu Luiyue in disbelief, thinking that he might have heard wrongly. However, the cold smile in her eyes was a silent reminder. You didn't hear wrongly. You still want to continue? Lu Ziyan heard his own voice stuttering. Not sure if it was because of his injuries or other reasons, his voice was very weak. Coupled with his pale face, he looked like a ghost. Chu Lua laughed, as if he was in a good mood. Yes, isn't this the challenger's rule? Only when both of them agree, the competition will end. If either side wants to continue, the competition cannot be stopped. As long as no lives are lost, everything else is free. Lu Ziyan's eyelids twitched. This Chuyu, he was serious. Endless regret surged up and swallowed Lu Ziyan. He should not have arranged this challenge with Chuyu. He should have just followed his initial plan and casually come here to exchange pointers and teach him a lesson. Why did he have to take the initiative to propose a challenge? Furthermore, it was wrong of him to promise Lu Yintong to deal with Chuyu. But it was futile to say all these now. Chuyu, I have already admitted defeat. What else do you want? Fear, worry, and anxiety filled Lu Ziyan's heart, causing him to explode. Anyway, Chuyu did not intend to let him go, so there was no point in continuing to beg for mercy. These 2 times, I admit that I have lost to you. You have already won, but you are still unwilling to let me go. What do I have to do to make you give up? Chu Liyue's face showed a trace of surprise. You are the one who proposed a challenge with me. Why are you blaming me now that you have lost? Saying this, she looked at Zhong Sun and asked sincerely. Senior Zhong Sun, in the academy, if you win a challenge, do you have to apologize to the loser? In the quiet crowd, someone suddenly could not hold back and let out a laugh. This sound was like a switch being pressed. More and more people laughed, and finally it became a mess. Ha ha, that's right. The winner had to apologize to the loser. Junior apprentice brother Chuyu, you beat senior apprentice brother to this extent. You have to properly compensate. Ha ha ha. Hurry up and help your senior martial brother Lu up. Isn't apologizing in person not enough? I'm afraid you have to prepare a generous gift, right? If you ask me, I'd say that our academy is indeed extraordinary. Even after losing, we can still act like a big shot. I'll challenge those few on the Azure Sky ranking someday and teach them a lesson. Everyone burst into laughter. All kinds of mocking words were mixed together, and every word was incomparably clear. Zhong Sun also laughed and raised his voice. Junior brother Chuyu, don't worry. You won fair and square. We all saw it. The rules of this competition have been in place for many years and have never been changed. You just have to do what you want to do. In the academy, the strong were still respected. Lu Ziyan's face that was as pale as a ghost quickly turned red. He wished he could find a hole to hide in. He had been in the academy for more than a year and had never been so humiliated. His face had been completely lost this time. Chu Liyue took a step forward. Her step was very light, but it seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 caddies. It heavily pressed on Lu Ziyan's heart. He panted heavily. Every part of his body was in unbearable pain. His lips trembled slightly, but he could no longer speak. Chu Liyue raised her hand. Wait. A delicate rebuke was suddenly heard. Chu Liyue raised his eyes and looked in the direction of the voice. The crowd consciously parted in the middle. A person slowly walked forward. It was Lu Yintong. Her beautiful face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. Her entire body was suffused with a shocking coldness. The originally lively crowd quickly quieted down because of her arrival. Many people secretly exchanged glances. There had been rumors in the academy that Chuyu had offended Lu Yintong on Thousand Wine Mountain. Today, it seemed that the rumors were true. There was indeed a conflict between the two of them. Lu Yintong seemed to not care about the surrounding gazes. She walked straight to the front of the square, looked at Chu Liyue, and coldly ordered, "Let him go." Her tone was so matter-of-fact and arrogant. It was as if others were born to listen to her orders. Zhong Sun frowned and spoke first. Lu Yintong, this is a challenge. According to the rules, outsiders are not allowed to interfere. Lu Yintong glanced at him. Her face was full of undisguised contempt. Since when is it your turn to teach me a lesson? Zhong Sun's expression was a little ugly. The other party's ranking on the Azure Cloud roll was not low. Moreover, she occupied the warrior and celestial physician rankings at the same time. She was indeed more powerful and had more status than him. I'm not teaching anyone a lesson. I'm just stating the facts. Zhong Sun clenched the fists in his sleeves. He did not show any signs of backing down. Regardless of whether it's you or the others present, you can only watch. Whether this competition continues or not depends on the two of them. To be precise, it depends on Chu Luiwei. Boring. Lu Yintong sneered. She did not take him seriously at all. She retracted her gaze and looked at Chu Luiwei. This time, her voice was sharper, and it carried a clearer tone of command. Chu Yu, I told you to let him go. This competition will end here. Just as Zhong Sun opened his mouth, he was stopped by Chu Luiwei. Senior brother Zhong Sun, this is between senior sister Lu and me. You don't have to worry too much. Anyway, she had already offended Lu Yintong. This was not a big deal. On the other hand, there was no need for Zhong Sun to be implicated because of her. Zhong Sun wanted to say something, but hesitated. After seeing Chu Luiwei's gaze, he could only suppress the impulse in his heart and nod gently. Chu Luiwei looked at Lu Yintong and smiled. Senior sister Lu, long time no see. How have you been? I wonder if that red-tailed red phoenix of yours has already been raised? It would have been fine if he did not mention this, but the moment he did, Lu Yintong's anger soared. You don't have to worry. Don't talk about this nonsense. I only want to ask you, didn't you hear what I said just now? Chu Luiwei nodded. I heard it. Since you heard it, be tactful and do as I say. Lu Yintong had always had a fiery temper and an extremely strong self-esteem. She still hadn't recovered from the loss last time. Every time she thought about it, she would still be brooding. If not for the fact that Chu Luiwei was standing on the Qingming Square, she would have already rushed forward. Oh, this! Chu Luiwei's voice was very long. There was a hint of a smile on her lips, and she looked a little careless. She stepped on Lu Xian's remaining hand with one foot. Lu Xian originally wanted to dodge, but he didn't have the time. By the time he reacted, he had already felt an intense pain coming from his hand. Chu Luiwei slowly crushed Lu Xian's hand, and the sound of bones breaking rang out one after another. She tilted her head and chuckled. It seems a little difficult, because I hate it the most when others order me to do things. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1171. In the spacious square, the white jade floor was emitting a faint light. That young man stood straight with a smile on his face. His tone was casual, slightly dragging out the end of his words, which made him look especially lazy. If one only looked at his current expression, one would think that he was gently whispering something. Who would have thought that he was ruthlessly stepping on another person under his feet? Arrogant, bold. Everyone who saw this scene could not help but have such thoughts in their hearts. This young man looked docile and harmless, but in fact, he was not to be trifled with. Lu Yintong never thought that, even after she had sternly warned him, the other party still did not take it seriously. He even publicly humiliated Lu Xian. This foot seemed to be stepping on Lu Xian, but in fact, it was targeted at her. She was so angry that her chest violently heaved up and down. She could not help but raise her voice and become a little sharp. Chu Yu, in the academy, you better restrain yourself. After confirming that Lu Xian's hand bones were almost broken, Chu Luiwei lifted his foot. Lu Xian was in so much pain that he could not shout. He could only curl up on the ground and tremble violently. He could not describe the feeling just now. Chu Yu really wanted to kill him. Moreover, for some unknown reason, this person had an indescribable aura that made people not dare to underestimate him. In fact, when he restrained his expression, people would unconsciously submit to him. He had been stepped on without being able to struggle and resist. On one hand, it was because he was injured. On the other hand, it was because of Chu Yu's astonishing aura. Chu Luiwei glanced at Lu Xian and retracted his gaze with satisfaction. He smiled and said, Senior Lu, I don't understand what you're saying. I've only been in the academy for 11 days, and I was even locked in Pengmin Mountain for 10 days. How can I not know how to restrain myself? Ew. Lu Yintong gritted her teeth. This Chu Yu was not only arrogant and impudent, he was also sharp-tongued. Lu Ziyan only came to exchange pointers with you, and you put him in such a situation. I don't know Lu Ziyan. It's strange that he suddenly came to find me, isn't it? Not to mention, in order to exchange pointers with me, he purposely waited at my residence for a long time. Chu Yue's smile deepened as she said meaningfully, I really don't know what kind of power a new student who just entered the academy, have to make senior brother Lu so stubborn just to fight with me? Everyone turned to look at Lu Yintong. In fact, Chu Yue's words were already very clear. Lu Zi, and purposely found trouble with her because of Lu Yintong's instructions. As for the reason, it was naturally because she had lost to a new junior brother on Thousand Wine Mountain. In any case, he was still a genius rank high on the Azure Sky rankings. Coupled with the fact that he was used to acting ostentatiously, it was inevitable that he would be arrogant and willful. How could Lu Yintong let this go? It was actually very understandable for him to do such a thing. However, she did not expect that the final outcome would be like this. Not only did Lu Ziyan fail to teach Chu Luyue a lesson, but she also made her lose face. The way some people looked at Lu Yintong gradually changed. He took the initiative to compete with others, but he was not convinced after losing. He even deliberately used such methods to bully others behind their backs. Wasn't he too narrow-minded? She only dared to bully Chu Yu because he was a new student and did not have any background. If it was someone stronger than her or someone with a strong background, she would definitely have a different reaction. Lu Yintong felt as if there was a blade at her back. The surrounding people's gazes made her feel extremely pressured. She could not stay any longer and finally could not help but sneer. So, now you admit that you're deliberately taking revenge? Chu Luyue smiled faintly. Senior Sister Lu, you're exaggerating when you say that I'm taking revenge. I'm just an ordinary student. I came to Lingxiao College just to improve my cultivation. I don't have any other intentions. It's just that if people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I can't be a pushover. Don't you think so? Lu Yintong clenched her teeth. This time, seeing that Senior Sister Lu is here personally, I'll let it go. Chu Luyue glanced at Lu Zi and who was lying on the ground. Senior brother Lu, when you go back, you must recuperate well. When I'm free, I'll visit you again. Lu Ziyan shuddered. He did not need Chu Ning to visit him. He did not want to see this person again in the future. He stood up with difficulty and limped away. Originally, his body had suffered heavy injuries, so he couldn't stand up. However, probably because he wanted to get away from Chu Luyue too much, he gritted his teeth and held on. When he walked to Lu Yintong, he lowered his head in shame. Lu Yintong gave him an extremely cold warning look and reprimanded him in a very low voice. Useless thing. Lu Ziyan's body stiffened and his head lowered even more. Needless to say, his life at Lu Yintong's place would not be easy in the future. Lu Yintong suddenly took a step forward. He's no match for you. Then what about me? Everyone quieted down. Lu Yintong was in a fight with Chu Yu. Many people, including Zhong Sun, were worried. Even if Chu Yu could defeat Lu Ziyan, he was definitely not Lu Yintong's opponent now. If the two of them really fought, Chu Yu was afraid. Just as Chu Luyue was thinking about how to answer, a familiar voice suddenly came from the side. Lu Yintong, isn't it a little shameful for you to fight with a junior who just came to the academy? Chu Luyue looked towards the source of the voice and was a little surprised. The one who spoke was actually Luo Yanlin. Strange. Wasn't he hostile towards me before? Why did he take the initiative to help me now? When Lu Yintong saw that the person who spoke was Luo Yanlin, a trace of surprise flashed across her face and a little fear appeared in her eyes. The other party's strength was far higher than hers. She did not want to offend him easily. Since Luo Yanlin spoke, it meant that he was on Chu Yu's side today. Lu Yintong weighed in her heart for a moment and decided to give up. Senior brother Luo is right. She forced a smile on her face. I also saw Ziyan in this state and was anxious for a moment. Forget it. Since senior brother Luo is here, then today's matter, let's forget about it. Lu Yintong took a deep look at Chu Luyue one last time. Chu Yu, I look forward to seeing you enter the Azure Sky role as soon as possible. At that time, we will officially compete." After saying that, she turned and left. Lu Zi and followed behind with difficulty and slow movements. A few people beside him came forward to help him. However, before she could take 2 steps, Chu Yue's voice came from behind her. "Senior Sister Lu, wait." Lu Yintong turned back and frowned. Chu Luyue suddenly laughed. "Senior Sister Lu, did you forget something?" Lu Yintong's frown deepened. Chu Luyue patiently reminded her. "There seems to be one more thing that hasn't been fulfilled from our bet that day." "Senior Sister Lu, don't you remember?" Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1172. Even if Lu Yintong didn't look for her, she would still go to her. She had finally won the bet, so she couldn't give up. Lu Yintong's face turned pale. "Of course I didn't. Going to Thousand Wine Mountain for a month and asking for the best spot." To her, this was not something that could be easily accomplished. She thought that Chuyu would be more restrained after being locked up in Min Mountain. She didn't expect him to be even more reckless. "Then I'll have to trouble Senior Sister Lu to send me to the top of Thousand Wine Mountain every day for the next month." Chu Yoyue's next sentence made Lu Yintong even angrier. "What did you say? You want me to send you there personally?" "Senior Sister Lu, why are you so surprised?" Chu Luyue raised his eyebrows slightly. "I only said that because I heard that the spot isn't fixed and we have to go there every day. If Senior Sister Lu doesn't go with me, how can I get the spot next to the spring? Don't you think so?" Lu Yintong's chest heaved up and down violently. "Senior Sister Lu, the bet is set. Are you not willing?" Chu Liyue seemed to have noticed something and asked carefully. Lu Yintong was so angry that she laughed. "Okay, since you said so, I'll accompany you to the end. Don't you want to go to Thousand Wine Mountain? I'll go with you every day for the next month." She wanted to see what kind of tricks this Chu you could still play. Lu Yintong turned around and left angrily. Her footsteps were much faster than before. The crowd quickly made way for her. After Lu Yintong's figure disappeared, many people turned around and looked at Chu Luyue with admiration. TSK, could it be that this Chu Yu really went all out? From now on, he had completely fallen out with Lu Yintong, right? He was really courageous. Chu Luyue didn't seem to notice those people's gazes. He tidied his clothes and walked down from the square. Zhong Sun quickly walked up to him. "Junior brother Chu Yu." Seeing his slightly worried face, Chu Luyue smiled and comforted him. "Senior brother Zhong Sun, don't worry. I know what to do." Looking at the young man's firm and indifferent eyes, Zhong Sun suddenly felt that he seemed to be much more mature and calm than he had imagined. Even she couldn't guess what he was thinking. He could only nod. Anyway, she was the one who started it, so you can't be blamed for it. Moreover, if she really wants to do something, Elder Wanzhong probably won't agree to it. As the only disciple that Elder Wanzhong had accepted in the past few years, even an idiot would know that Elder Wanzhong would definitely dote on him and would not allow him to be bullied. At this moment, another voice came from the side. "Your boxing is not bad." Chu Luyue and Zhong Sun turned around to look and saw that Luo Yinlin and the others had unknowingly arrived. It was Luo Yinlin who spoke. He looked at Chu Luyue from head to toe, and his eyes flashed. "Early stage, 7th order. Your strength doesn't seem like it." Chu Luyue smiled and chose a euphemistic way of saying it. "I'm more durable." That was true. After fighting with those puppets, her resistance might not even be comparable to an 8th order warrior, let alone someone of the same level. Of course, it was the same when fighting others. Every punch hit the flesh. It was all thanks to De Bao that she was able to win this match so easily today. Thinking of this, Chu Luyue suddenly frowned. De Bao said that he would wait for her in the academy, but there was no movement until now. She didn't know if he was in the academy now, or why he hadn't come to find her. "Chu Yu, what's wrong with you?" Seeing that Chu Luyue was a little absent-minded, Luo sure couldn't help but ask. Chu Luyue came back to her senses and shook her head. "Nothing, just a sudden fight, and I'm a little tired." "Everyone, you've been winning from the beginning to the end, and you didn't suffer any injuries, so why are you tired? Luo Yinlin suddenly said. You seem to be quite talented in martial arts. If you have time, ask the elders and cultivate well. Maybe it's not bad. If this Chu Yu was really only at the early stage of the Seventh Order, then the fact that he could defeat Lu Zi and so easily was enough to prove his talent. Even if his current realm wasn't high, but in the future, maybe it was limitless. Chu Yoyue's lips curled up slightly. Thank you for your advice, senior brother Luo. In addition, today's matter can be considered as owing senior brother Luo a favor. If there is a chance in the future, Chu Yu will definitely repay it. Luo Yinlin admired Chu Luiyue even more in his heart. The reason why he spoke was not entirely to help Chu Yu, but the other party took the initiative to accept his favor, which was indeed smart and righteous. It's just a matter of a sentence. I don't need you to repay anything. After all, you are Shursher's friend, so this small matter is not worth mentioning. In the future, cultivate well and get on the Azure Cloud list as soon as possible, then you won't be bullied like this. Chu Yuyue's expression was slightly restrained as she nodded seriously. All right, since this matter is over, you all should go back and have good rest. Chu Yu. Before Luo Yinlin could finish, a voice suddenly came from behind. The few of them turned their heads and saw the door of the Dongwang Bell Tower suddenly open. An elder Wanzhong was walking out. He walked over and stopped in front of the few of them for a moment. The few of them bowed in unison. Greetings, Elder Wanzhong. Chu Luiyue quickly glanced at his expression. Master? Follow me. Elder Wanzhong's face was expressionless, and no one could tell what he was thinking. He only said the sentence and walked forward. The few of them looked at each other. Why do I feel like something is wrong with Elder Wanzhong? Luo Shursher muttered. It's not just a feeling, it's true. Shui Sheng's tone was firm, but his face was full of confusion. Strange. Chu Yu, logically speaking, your master, Elder Wanzhong, should be very proud and happy that you won this challenge so beautifully. Why? He couldn't explain it, but it was strange. It didn't seem like he was happy or angry, and it was hard to fathom. Chu Luiyue shook his head. I'll go first. I'll find you later. With that, he followed. Zhong Sun wanted to follow, but he stopped when he remembered Elder Wanzhong's expression. Chu Luiyue followed Elder Wanzhong back to his residence. This was Chu Luiyue's first time coming to ancient Cypress Mountain. She was supposed to formally acknowledge him as her master on the second day after the examination, but something happened at Thousand Wine Mountain that night, and she was directly locked up in Pengmin Mountain, so she couldn't come. The mountain was lush with green trees, and the faint fragrance of herbs filled the air. In the academy, every elder's residence was independent, so there were only the two of them on the mountain. Halfway up the mountain, in a herb field, there was a simple wooden house. The two of them walked into the house, and Elder Wanzhong finally stood still and turned around. He looked at Chu Luiyue quietly, and there was a sharp and cold light in his calmness. It was as if he wanted to see through her completely. Chu Luiyue's heart slowly tightened. Elder Wanzhong stared at her and asked word by word, Who taught you your boxing skills? Love Network asked, Who taught you your boxing skills? Chapter 1173. Chu Luiyue didn't expect him to ask this question. She couldn't help but be taken aback. Fist technique? When she made her move earlier, she didn't think much about it. She just instinctively swung her fist. Now that she thought about it, DeBeo seemed to have taught her fist technique when she was fighting with those puppets. Because most of her attention was on how to deal with the puppets, she didn't pay much attention to it. Why did Elder Wanzhong suddenly ask this? Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment and answered, I learned it from a senior. What senior? Elder Wanzhong continued to ask. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched slightly. Judging from Elder Wanzhong's reaction, could it be that he knew DeBeo? However, DeBao had never mentioned his identity before, nor had he mentioned Elder Wanzhong and the others. Chu Luiyue couldn't tell what his background was and how he was related to Elder Wanzhong. It's a senior I met by chance, Chu Luiyue said slowly. I've sparred with him before, so I learned these moves along the way. You? Spar with him? Elder Wanzhong asked in an inexplicable tone. Chu Yue's heart skipped a beat. She felt that Elder Wan Zheng's gaze could see through her. Where's he now? Chu Liyue shook her head. I don't know. She really didn't know. Although De Bao said that they would meet in the academy, there wasn't even a trace of him. After entering the academy, she didn't have the time to look for him. Moreover, because she didn't know his identity, she didn't dare to make a big fuss. You don't know? Elder Wanzheng obviously didn't believe her. He stared at the young man in front of him for a long time, but he couldn't figure out anything. This caused his originally firm belief to waver a little. You really don't know? Chu Liyue sighed softly. I really don't know. The room fell silent for a moment. Elder Wanzheng sighed. He's willing to teach you this fist technique. It's obvious that he thinks highly of you. His tone seemed to be nostalgic. Judging from his tone, he didn't seem to be hostile. Chu Liyue thought in her heart and asked cautiously, Master, do you know him? Elder Wanzheng was startled. Soon after, he laughed bitterly. You could say that. Chu Liyue was even more confused. What do you mean? Sort of? You brat, your luck is pretty good. Elder Wanzheng looked at her with a complicated gaze. There seemed to be something moving in his eyes. Chu Liyue spoke after some deliberation. To be able to receive guidance from that senior, this student also feels honored. Elder Wanzheng nodded, then shook his head and smiled. No wonder, as an early stage of the seventh step, you were actually able to defeat Lu Ziyan. With that person's guidance, what was a mere Lu Ziyan? Chu Liyue didn't say anything. Elder Wanzheng suddenly smiled helplessly. If I had known about this earlier, I might not have accepted you as my disciple back then. Master, what do you mean? Chu Liyue was a little surprised. Elder Wanzheng looked at her meaningfully. You hid your talent as a martial artist, didn't you? Chu Liyue laughed. Master is joking. If your talent isn't enough, you definitely won't be able to invite him to teach you. He has always hated stupid people the most. Elder Wanzheng waved his hand. Chu Liyue recalled the days she spent with De Bao, and 2 streams of hot tears welled up in her heart. That's true. Even someone like her couldn't avoid being despised by De Bao all the time, let alone others. Although I don't know why you're only at the early stage of the 7th step, your combat strength is not bad. Your future potential is limitless, and you have a lot of potential. Elder Wanzheng patted Chu Liyue's shoulder. Don't mention this to anyone for the time being. However, if Elder Bo Yin and the rest ask you, just answer truthfully. Chu Liyue nodded. This student understands. If you have time in the future, go to the martial artist's side to learn more. Don't fall behind. Elder Wanzheng's reminder made Chu Liyue feel that it was a little strange. This meant cough. If you meet that person in the future and are criticized for not being strong enough, don't say that I didn't give you time to cultivate. Elder Wanzheng tried his best to defend himself. If he had known that Chu Yu had caught the eye of that person, he wouldn't have snatched him to be his disciple. However, he was in a difficult position now, and this child was indeed very talented in celestial physician. He really couldn't bear to give up. Therefore, he could only use this compromise. Chu Liyue was speechless. She vaguely felt that Elder Wanzheng seemed to be respectful towards De Bao. His tone and demeanor were not normal at all. She paused for a moment and asked tentatively, Master, that person, is he also an elder of the academy? Elder Wanzheng looked at her with a strange expression. Chu Liyue was speechless. Why do I feel like I'm being looked down on? It's fine if you don't know. If there's a chance in the future, you will know. Elder Wanzheng sighed. Where's your black jade token? Chu Liyue took it out and handed it over. Elder Wanzheng took out his green jade token. A stream of light flew out from his token and entered Chu Liyue's token. Chu Liyue saw that the points on his token had suddenly increased by 100,000. This is a small gift from me to you. These points are enough to support you for 2 to 3 months. When you break through to the 9th grade celestial physician, I will naturally reward you. Of course, the faster you can get on the Qingyan roll, the more rewards you will receive. As he spoke, Elder Wanzheng handed over an ancient book. In this medical book, there are prescriptions for 9th grade medicinal pills. During this period of time, study it well and strive to break through as soon as possible. If you lack any herbs, Just use your points to exchange for them at the Medicine Wind Valley. Chu Luiwei took it with both hands. Thank you, Master. Elder Wan Zheng nodded and asked again. By the way, how were you in Pengmin Mountain for the past few days? How was it? Love Network has a better reading experience. Chapter 1174. Chu Luiwei wanted to say that she was doing well there, and even wanted to go there again. But in the end, her rationality still made her swallow these words. She lowered her head slightly. It's only right for a student to be punished for her mistakes. Seeing her like this, Elder Wan Zheng couldn't bear to reprimand her. Since this matter is over, let's forget about it, and let bygones be bygones. Thousand Wine Mountain isn't a place where students can enter as they wish. Don't do this again, understand? Chu Luiwei answered obediently. Thank you for your guidance, Master. Elder Wan Zheng nodded in satisfaction. All right, go back and study the prescription in this book. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me. After that, he gave Chu Luiwei a few more instructions and let her leave. Who was Debeo? On the way back, Chu Luiwei kept thinking about this question. Judging from Elder Wan Zheng's attitude, Debeo's status should be quite high. After all, he was a divine-level expert who had forged a divine body. Even in the entire Lingxiao College, he should be an extremely powerful existence. Perhaps she should ask Debeo the next time she saw him. She quickly returned to her residence. Zhong Sun was already waiting at the door. When he saw her return, his face lit up. Junior Chuyu, how are you? Did Elder Wan Zheng do anything to you? Chu Luiwei laughed. He's my master. Of course he wouldn't do anything to me. Senior Zhong Sun, you worry too much. Zhong Sun scratched his head in embarrassment. I was just anxious. After all, when Elder Wan Zheng brought you away, you didn't look too good. That didn't seem like a good thing. Chu Luiwei thought for a while and said, with a disciple like me who causes trouble as soon as she arrives, it's inevitable that Master will have a headache. There was no way to refute this. Even Zhong Sun had to admit that Chu Luiwei was really good at causing trouble. How long had she been here, and she had already caused so much trouble? You still know? Anyway, your name has already spread in the Lingxiao College. Many people are waiting to see you and Lu Yintong fight. Chu Luiwei chuckled and walked towards his courtyard. What's there to see? She bullied you so much. Are you going to let go just like that? Zhong Sun felt a little strange. I thought you said you wanted her to accompany you to Wanjiu Mountain for a month on purpose. I did it on purpose. However, it wasn't just to vent my anger. Chu Luiwei looked lazy. She's only ranked in the 40s on the Ascension rankings, but there are numerous people that want to go to Myriad Wine Mountain, and there's no lack of people that are as formidable as her or even stronger. Even if I bring her Black Feather token with me, I'm afraid some people won't give me face. What should I do then? I don't want to offend more people. Therefore, it was most appropriate to bring her along. Not only would he be able to hold his head high and take her down a notch, but he would also be able to pull her to the front when there was an unexpected situation. Why wouldn't he do it? Zhong Sun's expression changed slightly, and then he slowly raised his thumb. You are ruthless enough. After today's incident, everyone thought that Chuyu did this to take revenge on Lu Yintong. However, Chuyu was actually doing it for Myriad Wine Mountain. From the beginning to the end, his goal was never Lu Yintong. However, no matter what, Lu Yintong is still an extremely powerful genius on the Ascension rankings. I heard that she has been diligently cultivating a martial technique recently, wanting to break through her own strength. If she really succeeds, then charging into the top 40 isn't impossible. At that time, Chu Luiwei stood still, tilted his head, and asked with interest, is the top 40 very powerful? Zhong Sun was stunned. Seeing the casual look of the youth opposite him, his heart skipped a beat, and he subconsciously thought that the other party was comparing Lu Yintong to Luo Yinlin. The top 40 is quite powerful. Of course, compared to Luo Yinlin, it's still a lot worse. But, Chuyu, you also know that relying on others is ultimately better than relying on yourself, right? Luo Yinlin could help once, but he couldn't help every time, right? Chu Luiwei pressed a hand on the door and was about to open it when he suddenly stopped. "Thank you, senior brother Zhong Sun." She turned around and said seriously. Zhong Sun relaxed a little and smiled. "Anyway, it's fine as long as you know what you're doing. With your talent, it won't be long before you can enter the ascension rankings. It's not impossible for you to catch up in the future. Junior brother has been busy for so long. It's time for you to have good rest. I won't disturb you anymore." Chu Luiwen nodded slightly. Zhong Sun quickly left. Chu Luiwen pushed the door and entered. She carefully locked the door. Click. "Your troublemaking personality really hasn't changed at all." A cold but soft voice came from behind. Although the tone was as cold and dignified as possible, it was a pity that the voice was too childish, and it sounded especially out of character. Instead, it made people want to rush up and ravage him, mess up his hair, and pinch his little face. Chu Liwei held back her laughter and turned around. In the room, who was sitting upright and obediently, if it wasn't Duga Mabao, who she hadn't seen for a long time, today he was still wearing the same purple brocade clothes, and his chubby and fair little face was no different from before. Chu Liyue's hand suddenly felt a little itchy. Then, she met Dugu Mabao's pair of magnificent and bewitching eyes. The two of them looked at each other for a moment. Dugu Mabao seemed to have seen through her thoughts, and his expression gradually became dangerous. A faint chill spread out from his body. Cough. Chu Liyue hurriedly coughed and walked forward. "Dabao, where have you been before? Why are you only here now?" He was still talking about it just now, and now he appeared. It was really Duga Mabao sneered. "If you weren't locked up in Mount Pengmin, would I have to wait for you for so long?" Chu Liyue suddenly felt guilty. "I didn't do it on purpose." She didn't explain too much, because she had an inexplicable feeling that Dabao should know about this. As expected, Dabao didn't ask too much, and only frowned. "If you had broken through earlier, your strength wouldn't have been so tyrannical, and you wouldn't have been bullied so wantonly." Still too weak. Chu Liyue was speechless. She knew that he wouldn't be able to say anything else. They had just met, and the topic was brought up again. She rubbed her eyebrows, wanting to defend herself. "I want to become stronger, but I need time. Could it be that I can continue to break through and directly become a god-level powerhouse?" Duga Mabao glanced at her coldly. Chu Liyue said, "I'll work hard. It's good that you know." Duga Mabao let her go. "Since you're already in the academy, you should seize the time and opportunity to cultivate well." Chu Liyue looked at him, suddenly leaned closer, and asked curiously, "Dabao, today Elder One Zheng saw that I used the fist technique you taught me, and he even asked about you." "You?" Duga Mabao's expression didn't change. "Don't worry about him. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 1175. Chu Liyue. "But he's my master now. It's not good not to tell him, right? You won't ask too much." Duga Mabao was calm and composed as he spoke with great certainty. "You can just say whatever you want and send him away." "Chu Liyue, that's Elder Wan Zheng. How can you send him away just like that?" Chu Liyue became more and more certain of her guess. She gritted her teeth and asked secretly, "Dabao, your status is higher than Elder Wan Zheng's, isn't it?" Duga Mabao glanced at her as if he was looking at a fool. Chu Liyue obediently swallowed the rest of her words. "Fine. Damn it. I shouldn't have asked that question. How was it in Mount Pengmin?" Duga Mabao suddenly changed the topic and asked casually. Chu Liyue leaned against the chair and rested her chin on one hand. In front of Duga Mabao, there was no need for her to hide these things. She said very honestly, "It was pretty good. No, it was very good." She touched her chin. "I think I can go there a few more times." If others heard this, they would probably think that Chu Liyue had gone crazy. However, Duga Mabao didn't say anything. He just lowered his eyes slightly. His thick and long eyelashes trembled slightly, hiding the emotions in his eyes. "What do you mean?" he asked faintly. Chu Liyue briefly told him what happened in Mount Pengmin. "Anyway, when I was cultivating there, it was very smooth. It seemed to be more." Chu Liyue paused. For a moment, She didn't know how to describe that feeling. Convenient? Comfortable? She couldn't say. She had the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, and her ability to devour the heaven and earth force was extremely strong. However, when she was inside, the heaven and earth force was vast and majestic, but it was exceptionally gentle. When it entered her body, it didn't take much effort for her to completely integrate into her own strength. She had never felt this way before. Is there something special about that place? Was that why the origin power inside was different from the outside world? Chu Liwa looked at Duga Bao. Debeo, what do you think? Even though Elder Wanzheng said that he wasn't an elder of the academy, Chu Liwa thought that he should have a close relationship with Lingxiao College. Then, perhaps he knew more about Pengmin Mountain? Pengmin Mountain's 7 pagodas are a special existence in the academy. Otherwise, it wouldn't be one of the places where severe punishments are carried out. Duga Bao's tone was indifferent, as if he had no interest in this. Your experiences? There's nothing strange about them. Chu Luiwen nodded thoughtfully, but there was still one thing he did not understand. Since it's a punishment, I should feel terrible after going in. Why is it the opposite? Duga Bao raised his eyes and asked in a calm voice, when did you become like a normal person? Chu Luiwe was speechless. For a moment, she couldn't refute. Her cultivation experience was indeed different from that of ordinary people. Maybe I'm fated with Pengmin Mountain? She muttered in a low voice. To be precise, she was fated with the space behind that door. She had chosen the same thing twice in a row. If she went there again, would she still choose the same thing? As soon as this dangerous thought appeared, Chu Luiwe forcibly suppressed it. She came to the academy to cultivate diligently, not to cause trouble. You're about to break through to the middle of the 7th level? Duga Bao looked at her again. Chu Luiwe laughed. Yes, I thought that it might not be so fast, but I didn't expect that after cultivating in Pengmin Mountain for 10 days, my progress would be so fast. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before she could officially break through. Duga Bao waved his small hand, and a chessboard with a faint glow appeared between the two. In that case, let's continue the game from last time. This time, Chu Luiwe took the most steps ever since she played chess with Duga Bao. Of course, in the end, she was still exhausted and almost exhausted. However, perhaps because he knew that she had experienced a lot today, Duga Bao quickly let her go. Looking at the completely dark sky outside, Debeo stood up and flew down from the chair. Chu Luiwe asked in surprise, Debeo, you're leaving? Duga Bao didn't look back and nodded slightly. You just have to stay here and cultivate properly. Where are you going? At this point, Chu Luiwe suddenly remembered that she hadn't asked him where he had been all this time. If he was also in the academy, then I have a place to go. Duga Bao's answer was extremely simple, and it was obvious that he had no intention of continuing. This time tomorrow, I'll be here again. Chu Luiwe hurriedly called out to him, Hey Debeo, I won't be here at this time tomorrow. Duga Bao turned around and frowned. What do you mean? Actually, I'll be going out later. For the next month, I won't be staying here at night. Duga Bao suddenly understood something, and his devilish purple eyes narrowed dangerously. You are going to Thousand Wine Mountain? Chu Luiwen nodded honestly. It wasn't easy to win the bet. Of course I can't give it up. She had already offended Lu Yintong. Wouldn't it be a great loss if she didn't go? Duga Bao snorted coldly. Or is it because of that red-tailed phoenix? As soon as he finished speaking, Dumpling ran out and squatted on Chu Liuyue's shoulder. It shook its wings and nodded vigorously with a face full of pride. Of course. Duga Bao looked at it coldly. Even if you don't go, as your strength increases, the bloodline in its body will gradually be stimulated. Chu Luiyue wasn't surprised that Duga Bao knew about this. She shrugged and smiled. I know, but since I have this opportunity, I don't want to give it up. If I break through to the divine level, who knows how long I'll have to wait? Duga Bao frowned slightly. He wanted to say something, but stopped himself. Actually, it might not take too long, but he couldn't tell her this. Since you've made up your mind, then so be it. But Duga Bao paused. You're not allowed to stay in Thousand Wine Mountain during the forbidden period. Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat. She chuckled. No, I've been locked up once. There won't be a second time. Dugamabao looked at her with a heavy gaze. Chu Luiwe suddenly had an idea. Debeo, you know the secret of the spring on Thousand Wine Mountain, don't you? Dugamabao didn't say anything. Then, why don't you tell me? Ahem, I'm joking. Chu Luiwe was halfway through her sentence when she tactfully stopped. Dugamabao turned and walked outside. Chu Luiwe didn't give up and asked, Debeo, tell me, if I really make a big mistake in the academy, or if I offend someone powerful, this little life of mine. Dugamabao stopped in his tracks. With me around, no one can take your life. Besides, he sneered, Rongshio isn't an idiot. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1176. Chu Luiwe was a little surprised. She did not expect him to mention Rongshio all of a sudden. Moreover, why did his words sound so strange? However, it's one thing for you to have a backer. It's another thing for you to not court death. Dugamabao opened the door. Although you can't continue most of your previous training in Lingxiao College, I'll still personally teach you when I'm free. With that, he took a step forward. In the next moment, that small figure disappeared into the thick night sky. Hey you. Chu Luiwe came back to her senses and rubbed the space between her eyebrows. She could almost imagine what kind of days awaited her in the future. She picked up Dumpling and walked out. Let's go. While we're still free, let's go wander around to our heart's content. Thousand Wine Mountain. Thousand Wine Mountain opened from evening to early morning. At this time, many students had already gathered at Thousand Wine Mountain. However, compared to the day before, there were much fewer people. For most of the students in the college, Thousand Wine Mountain was a place for entertainment. It was good to come once in a while, but there was no need to come every day. Moreover, Chu Luiwe and Lu Yintong's matter had caused a stir recently. Many people were afraid and did not want to cause trouble, so they did not come. As soon as Chu Luiwe arrived at Thousand Wine Mountain, she attracted everyone's attention. Countless pairs of eyes fell on her with different expressions. However, Chu Luiwe turned a blind eye to it and walked straight up. She finally stopped when she was about to reach the top of the mountain. At this time, the space beside the spring was almost full. Lu Yintong's figure did not appear among them. Chu Luiwe looked at a young man beside her. Senior Sister Lu is not here today. It was obvious who Senior Sister Lu was referring to. The young man was stunned for a moment and nodded subconsciously. I didn't see her. Chu Luiwe raised her eyebrows slightly. It seemed that Lu Yintong did not take her words to heart. It was already so late, but he still hadn't come. She could wait, but Dumpling didn't have the patience. Chu Luiwe stood in place and waited for about 15 minutes before Lu Yintong finally arrived. Gong Sheng, who had been with her that day, also came with her. Senior Lu, you made me wait for a long time. Chu Luiwe was the first to speak with a smile. After seeing Chu Luiwe, Lu Yintong's expression, which had finally calmed down, changed again. However, the gazes of the people around her made her swallow her words. Something came up at the last minute. She said impatiently, her tone cold. Chu Luiwe didn't intend to waste time blaming her. He smiled. Senior Apprentice Sister Lu is a busy person. It's already very difficult for her to make time. Please. Lu Yintong gritted her teeth. This was only the first day, and she already felt humiliated. She really didn't know how she was going to endure the next month. However, she had already made a promise in front of so many people. If she went back on her word, her reputation in the academy would be ruined. Therefore, no matter how uncomfortable it was, she had to continue. She took a deep breath and looked at the top of the mountain. When she saw the faces of those people, her expression changed slightly. Why are they here today? When Chu Luiwe saw her expression, an idea popped up in her mind. She also looked over and quickly sized up the few people. There were men and women, and they were all dressed in luxurious clothes. They seemed to be the children of aristocratic families. Most importantly, the aura around those people was not much weaker than Lu Yintong's. Moreover, judging from Lu Yintong's expression, Those people might be stronger than her. Senior Lu, is there a problem? Chu Luiwei asked gently. Lu Yintong slowly clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. He still has the nerve to ask, but at this moment, she had no choice but to bite the bullet and continue. She turned her head, lowered her voice, and said word by word. 1 month later, we'll settle this score properly. The threat and warning in her words were undisguised. Chu Yue's face showed a trace of guilt. Originally, I thought that if Senior Lu felt that it was difficult, then I would temporarily forget about today. But since Senior Lu said that there's no problem, then I will naturally accept. As she said that, the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Senior Lu, you're a woman of your word. You're really a role model for our generation. Chu Luiwei didn't lower her voice when she said these 2 sentences, so quite a few people around her heard them clearly. For a moment, the atmosphere became strange. Lu Yintong didn't expect that she would dare to play such a trick in front of so many people. Her expression almost collapsed. Yua Tong. Just as Lu Yintong was about to explode, Gong Sheng suddenly spoke, pulling her back to her senses. We still have other things to do later. Let's deal with Junior Brother Chu Yu's problem as soon as possible. Otherwise, Junior Brother Chu, you will suspect that you forgot again. As Gong Sheng spoke, he looked meaningfully at Chu Luiwei. Although he was smiling, his words were filled with undisguised sarcasm. He wasn't present during the day, but he had heard everything from Lu Yintong. Although he was shocked that a rank 7 warrior like Chu Luiwei was able to defeat Lu Zian, who was an entire rank higher, he still felt contempt and disdain for Chu Luiwei. In his opinion, there was a problem with Chu Luiwei's victory. He must have used some underhanded method. In addition, he later asked Lu Yintong to send him tens of thousands of wine mountains for a month. In his heart, he hated Chu Luiwei even more. Chu Luiwei didn't care about this at all. No matter what they said, as long as what needed to be done was done, nothing else mattered. Thus, she replied with a smile, Senior Brother Gong Sheng is right. My memory has always been bad. In the next month, I hope that Senior Sister Lu will forgive me. Lu Yintong's chest seemed to have a ball of flames surging crazily, almost burning her to ashes. Without saying a word, she lifted her foot and walked up. Gong Sheng followed closely behind. When he passed by Chu Luiwei, he stopped in his tracks and looked sideways at Chu Luiwei deeply. You have guts. He still had a smile on his face, but the words that came out of his mouth were cold and sinister, making people shudder. Chu Luiwei chuckled. Thank you for your praise, Senior Brother Gong Sheng. Gong Sheng took a deep breath, turned around, and quickly followed Lu Yintong. Chu Luiwei raised his eyebrows and slowly walked over. Lu Yintong came to the spring at the top of the mountain. The few people who were already standing there heard the commotion and turned their heads to look. Lu Yintong stood still, took a deep breath, and said politely, Liang Xiao Xiao, is there another seat here? Can I know? A delicately dressed woman interrupted her and said lazily, That's right. There's already someone here. You should be here soon. If you want to come, you should come early tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1177. Liang Xiaoxiao was very direct. Obviously, she did not intend to give Lu Yintong any face. This was because she was ranked 39th on the warrior leaderboard, much higher than Lu Yintong. One had to know that the competition on the Qinyan leaderboard was very fierce. Every time one moved up a rank, it meant that one's strength was much stronger than the previous one. Lu Yintong naturally did not dare to offend Liang Xiaoxiao. Of course, there was another reason. Liang Xiaoxiao was born in a first-rate family, much more powerful than Lu Yintong's second-rate family background. Even though everyone in the academy rarely talked about this matter, it didn't mean that they could really ignore this matter. After all, they would not stay in the academy forever. In the future, when they left the academy, they would have to face these problems if they wanted to survive in the realm of God. If he offended someone with a strong background here, his future days would not be easy. Therefore, the arrogant Lu Yintong did not get angry when she was given the cold shoulder. In fact, The expression on her face became even more courteous. I wonder who that person is. I can use points to exchange with him. Liang Xiao seemed to have heard a joke. She suddenly covered her mouth and laughed. Points? Do we look like people who lack those things? Her tone was light, as if she was teasing, but to Lu Yintong, it was very harsh. It was not that Liang Xiao and the others did not lack points. In Lingxiao College, the importance of points was self-evident. No one would complain about having more points. But relatively speaking, they did not need to exchange such things for points. It was embarrassing. These words were indeed mocking Lu Yintong. Lu Yintong was also in a dilemma. Who would have thought that she would meet this group of people on the first day? Normally, they wouldn't come here, but for some reason, they actually came together today. Moreover, they took all the seats and did not give her any chance at all. She did not want to offend these people, but there was still the aggressive Chu Yu behind her. Just as Lu Yintong was thinking about how to speak again, Liang Xiao's eyes lit up and she waved behind Lu Yintong. Ziyuan, come quickly. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Hearing this, everyone present turned to look at him. Lu Yintong's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly turned around. When she saw who it was, her face turned ugly. Jiang Jiwan, the person that Liang Xiao said didn't come was her. Jiang Zuan's movements were light as she floated down. Under the moonlight, there was a sense of ethereal immortality. The crowd was silent for a moment, and many people's eyes flashed with surprise. Jiang Zhuan didn't seem to notice these gazes at all. She walked straight towards them and said with a faint smile, "I'm sorry for being late. I was going to come just now, but I comprehended something at the last minute, so I'm late." Liang Xiao smiled enchantingly. Another breakthrough? Jiang Zhuan blushed and shook her head. Not so fast. Then it's still fast. Liang Xiao and the others looked at each other. Look at you. Didn't you just break through not long ago? In the blink of an eye, he was about to break through again. If this goes on, all of us will be completely defeated by you. I won't play with you anymore. That's right, Ziyuan. When you're cultivating, you should consider other people's feelings. My heart is about to be shattered into pieces by you. Huh. Ren Ziyuan is going to chase after senior brother Rongxiao. How can you compare to her? The last young man's unintentional words caused the originally noisy and lively atmosphere to instantly turn stiff and cold. The smile on Jiang Zhuan's face froze for a moment, and then faded a lot. Liang Xiao glared at the man who didn't know what to say. Senior brother Rongxiao's strength is tyrannical. Of the 4 rankings of the Azure Sky Roll, he has taken first place in 2. Who in the academy doesn't have him as their goal? What's there to say? The man hurriedly said, Yes. I also have the same idea. However, senior brother Rongxiao is a rare top genius. Ordinary people can't be compared to him, right? Jiang Zhuan said indifferently, is naturally the most powerful. How can I be compared to him? Everyone looked at each other, and the atmosphere was very awkward. Who in the academy didn't know that Jiang Zhuan was infatuated with Rongxiao? Although Rongxiao had already left when she entered the academy and rarely came back, everyone was well aware of her relationship with Rongxiao. Everyone thought that she would be Rongxiao's princess consort. Who knew? Liang Xiao's eyes turned, and there was a natural seductive look in her eyes. Aya, what's the point of saying all that? Ziyuan, you haven't been at Thousand Wine Mountain for a long time, right? Come quickly. This spring water seems to be sweeter than before. Jiang Zhuan forced a smile and was about to walk over when she saw Lu Yintong standing at the side. A trace of disgust flashed across her eyes. Lu Yintong, why are you here? Lu Yintong secretly thought that enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. She actually bumped into Jiang Zhuan. It was also her fault for being too careless. Liang Xiao and the others had always been close to Jiang Zhuan. When she saw them just now, she should have thought of this. If she left immediately, it would seem that she was guilty. Isn't Thousand Wine Mountain a place where everyone can come? Lu Yintong asked. Jiang Zhuan's lips twitched without a smile. That's true. Then, please go ahead. With that, she lifted her feet and walked forward, not even looking at her. It was as if she didn't care about Lu Yintong at all. Lu Yintong was secretly angry and turned to leave. But after taking a few steps, she was stopped by someone. "Senior Sister Lu, where are you going?" Chu Liwei stood in front of her and raised an arm to block her way. "You haven't fulfilled your promise to me yet." Lu Yintong was very annoyed. "Let's call it a day. We'll talk about it tomorrow." With that, she was about to force her way out. However, Chu Liwei held her back tightly and didn't give her a chance to move forward. "Senior Sister Lu, I'm really sorry. I don't want to wait until tomorrow. If you continue to push it to the day after tomorrow, then the day after tomorrow, what's the point of this bet?" Lu Yintong gritted her teeth. "I said tomorrow." Chu Yue's eyes moved back and forth between her and Jiang Jiwan. It seemed that the two of them had a deep grudge. She didn't expect to meet them so directly today. There were several people on the other side, and they seemed to be very confident. No wonder Lu Yintong wanted to leave. If she stayed, wouldn't she be humiliated for nothing? However, Chu Liwei didn't intend to care about this. She only wanted Lu Yintong to fulfill her promise. "Senior Sister Lu, I also said that I don't want to wait until tomorrow." Chu Yue's tone became more serious. At this moment, Liang Xiaoxiao's coquettish laughter suddenly sounded. "Hey, Lu Yintong, have you fallen to the point where you're threatened by junior brother? I remember how glorious it was when you confessed to senior brother Rong Xiao in public. How did it end up like this?" Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1178. Liang Xiaoxiao. Lu Yintong was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Her hair stood on end, and she could no longer hold it in. She let out a sharp cry. "Don't forget that I'm still your senior sister. Show some respect." "Senior sister?" Liang Xiaoxiao's smile blossomed. "You entered the academy half a year earlier than us, but your strength is far behind our senior sister?" Her words were full of sarcasm. Lu Yintong's face was red with anger. There seemed to be flames burning in her eyes. "These people, they're too much." Chu Liwei raised his eyebrows slightly. "Confess in public? It seems like Rong Xiao is quite popular in the academy. No wonder the atmosphere between Lu Yintong and Jiang Jiwan is so strange. When rivals meet, their eyes will be exceptionally red. They must have fought several times in public and in secret." However, Lu Yintong was obviously at a disadvantage now. The other party had the advantage in numbers and was stronger than her. It was normal for her to be humiliated like this. "Xiao Xiao," Jiang Jiwan spoke, as if she wanted to make peace. "That's all in the past. Why bring it up again? Anyway, the person standing next to Rong Xiao was not either of them. Jiang Jiwan had long known that there were countless people in the academy who had a crush on Rong Xiao. If she were to target each and every one of them, she would have been exhausted. The reason why she was in such a mess with Lu Yintong was because the bird that stuck its head out would be shot. There were so many people who liked Rong Xiao, but most of them did not even dare to say a word to him. However, Lu Yintong confessed to Rong Xiao in public. This matter was so big that Jiang Jiwan had been brooding over it. Although Rong Xiao did not even look at Lu Yintong at that time, it had happened. Jiang Jiwan could not get over it. What was even more ridiculous was that Rong Xiao had said something to Lu Yintong. He said he already had someone he liked. These words were not only for Lu Yintong, but also for the other girls in the academy who were ready to make a move. After Lu Yintong found out, she thought it was Jiang Jiwan, so she went to Jiang Jiwan's place to make a fuss. Thus, the two of them became enemies. Even after Rong Xiao left the academy, there was still a deep gap between the two of them. Every time they met, they would fall into this kind of awkward situation. It was fine at first, but as time passed, Jiang Jiwan caught up and gradually surpassed Lu Yintong. Because of the rumors about her relationship with Rong Xiao, many people in the academy wanted to befriend her. Jiang Jiwan's strength had increased greatly, and she had expanded her network. She quickly crushed Lu Yintong. As a result, Lu Yintong's days in the academy gradually became difficult. Even though Jiang Ziwan didn't finish her sentence, everyone could tell that she didn't care about Lu Yintong at all from her nonchalant attitude. Liang Xiaoxiao laughed coquettishly. Okay. Since you said so, then, Senior Lu, I won't see you out. Lu Yintong's expression turned stern. She was about to retort when Gongsheng pulled her back. There was a rare look of worry on his usually cynical face. Tong, bear with it for a while. They were indeed no match for those people now. Lu Yintong shook off his hand. I can walk on my own. However, she had just taken half a step when she heard Jiang Juwan's voice behind her. There's nothing to be angry about. There's no need to lose your dignity for such people. Hearing this, the suppressed anger in Lu Yintong's heart finally exploded. She turned around angrily and walked back quickly. Gongsheng saw that her expression was not right and quickly pulled her back. Tong. Lu Yintong quickly dodged, not even letting him touch her. Sensing that Lu Yintong was going back on her words, Liang Xiaoxiao and the others looked back. Jiang Jiwan. Lu Yintong stood still and stared at Jiang Jiwan. Jiang Jiwan frowned slightly. Lu Yintong sneered. Who do you think you are? Do you think Rongxiu really cares about you? The Academy has already spread the news that Rongxiu already has a princess. And that person isn't you at all. You've always thought of yourself as the future princess of Yuntian Tower. But in the end, you didn't even get the status of a concubine, did you? Her words were spoken quickly and anxiously, like a string of cannons flying out, not giving anyone time to react. Jiang Jiwan's expression finally changed. Lu Yintong, you're presumptuous. Lu Yintong sneered. I'm presumptuous? Who do you think you are to speak to me in such a manner? In terms of background, the Tomb of Immortal Water is just one of the many tribes that rely on Yuntian Tower. At most, you're a second-rate family. In terms of seniority, you entered the academy later than me. Don't you understand the principle of seniority? In terms of strength, your ranking on the warrior rankings is indeed higher than mine, but I'm famous on both rankings. If we really compare, I might not be much worse than you. Even the princess of Yuntian Tower hasn't come to criticize me. You think you can? Slap. Jiang Juwan finally couldn't hold back and directly raised her hand to slap Lu Yintong. Her combat strength was higher than Lu Yintong's, so Lu Yintong couldn't dodge this slap. There was dead silence all around. Chu Luiwei touched his chin with interest, half smiling. A certain someone's absence could still cause such a huge commotion. Really? Jiang Juwan. Gongsheng immediately stepped forward and blocked Lu Yintong, his brows tightly knitted. You're too much. Jiang Juwan regretted it after she slapped Lu Yintong. She had always maintained a good image in the outside world. Who would have thought that she would hit Lu Yintong in the heat of the moment? Many gazes fell on her. Her eyes quickly turned red, and her expression was full of grievance. I don't have the right. If he doesn't like it, the promise of elders and childhood sweethearts are all in vain. If he likes it, even if it's someone from the outside world, he wouldn't mind. What am I? With that, she stomped her feet and quickly left. Hey, Ziyuan, Liang Xiaoxiao shouted and anxiously said to the people around her. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and chase after her. The few of them quickly followed her. Liang Xiaoxiao walked a few steps, then looked back at Lu Yintong. We'll remember today's score. With that, her figure quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. Lu Yintong's face turned pale. Only then did she realize what she had just done. Chu Luiwei crossed her arms, her slender fingers tapping lightly, the tip of her brows raised slightly. Was she slandering her in front of everyone? Digression. It's the end of the month. The various stars haven't appeared yet. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1179. There was dead silence. Because of this sudden commotion, the originally lively mountain became cold and silent. Many people looked at each other with different expressions. The words that Jiang Juwan said just now. There was too much information. An agreement between elders, childhood sweethearts? Didn't that mean that she and Rongxiu were engaged by their elders a long time ago? It was only because someone snatched her away that they didn't get together? And The princess consort of the Yuntian Tower was actually an outsider. Although Elder Bo Yin and the others already knew about the news from the Yuntian Tower, it wasn't spread. Many people in the academy didn't know about it. That was why they were so shocked when they heard it. Gradually, the crowd started to talk about it. I heard that the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower had a mysterious background. I didn't expect her to be an outsider, let alone senior brother Rong Xiao. Such a person isn't even qualified to be with a third-rate family in the Divine Ruins world, right? T.S. I really don't know what senior brother Rong Xiao is thinking. Did he reject his engagement with Jiang Zhuan and marry another woman? Jiang Zhuan and senior brother Rong Xiao don't have an engagement, right? If they did, according to her personality, she would have announced it long ago. Even if they didn't, it should be about the same. After all, she was raised in the Yuntian Tower by their clan leader since she was young. It's obvious that she's being groomed to be the future princess consort of the Yuntian Tower. Unfortunately, I'm a little curious. I wonder what kind of woman could catch the eye of senior brother Rong Xiao. Everyone was talking. Chu Luiwei turned a deaf ear to them and walked to the mouth of the spring. Well, no matter what, everyone had left, leaving a big, empty space. Dumpling flew down and stood on a rock beside the mouth of the spring. It lowered its head and drank. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many people around, it would have already charged in. Chu Luiwei smiled when he saw how happy it was. He looked up at Lu Yintong. Senior sister Lu, many thanks. If it wasn't for Lu Yintong, things would have been a little tricky. Her voice brought Lu Yintong back to her senses. She raised her head subconsciously. Lu Yintong's heart sank when she saw the smiling young man standing beside the spring. He did it on purpose. This Chuyu, he clearly did it on purpose. He must have expected that there would be a fight over the position next to the mouth of the spring, so he deliberately brought her along. She had become his target. She had offended those people for him. In the future, even if they pursued the matter, those people would only find trouble with her. As for Chuyu, he had obtained all the benefits and could still sit back and relax. Lu Yintong wanted to explode. She wanted to scream hysterically. However, in the end, all that was left in her heart was despair. She couldn't do that. She had no reason. There had never been a moment when Lu Yintong regretted what she had done that day as much as she did now. From the beginning, she shouldn't have made that bet. She shouldn't have agreed to the conditions that Chuyu had proposed. But now, it was too late to say anything. Thinking of the warning that Liang Xiao and the others had given her before they left, she gradually felt uneasy. Jiang Zhuan alone wasn't that difficult to deal with, but there were so many of them. Moreover, she still had the Yuntian Tower's clan leader behind her. Thinking of this, her legs finally went weak, and she almost fell to the ground. Attends! Gong Sheng hurriedly supported her. His brows were tightly knitted and his eyes were filled with worry. Attends, I'll send you back first. Lu Yintong nodded with difficulty. Gong Sheng looked at Chu Luiwei and said in a deep voice, Junior brother Chuyu, don't think that you can completely remove yourself from this matter. If anything happens to Ah Tong in the future, you definitely won't be able to escape. With that, he supported Lu Yintong and left. Chu Luiwei lowered his head and glanced at Dumpling. Dumpling, for you, I've offended everyone I could. Dumpling quickly raised her head. Her eyes were bright, and there seemed to be a silver tianlei flickering in the depths of her eyes. Chu Luiwei couldn't help but smile. The effect at the mouth of the spring was really obvious. Dumpling was already very strong. I wonder what she would be like when her bloodline power fully awakens. While Dumpling was devouring the power in the spring, Chu Luiwei wasn't idle either. The concentration of origin power on Thousand Wine Mountain was also very high. Perhaps it was because there was a lot of Tianlei stored in the spring, but the origin power was somewhat different from the outside. Chu Luiwei simply sat cross-legged and began to cultivate in peace. She was indeed getting closer and closer to breaking through to the middle stage of the 9th rank. In fact, she could already feel the invisible barrier. It was as if she could break it with just a little bit of force. Chu Luiwei was waiting for that opportunity. Seeing Chu Luiwei so calm and composed, the others on the mountain felt even more strange. Speaking of which, the source of today's dispute was still Chuyu. Lu Yintong and Jiang Zhuan had completely fallen out, but he acted as if nothing had happened. Not only did he allow his contracted divine beast to drink the spring water, he even started to cultivate on the spot. Just what kind of confidence did he have to be so calm and collected? If he didn't have a backer, they wouldn't have heard of him. If it wasn't for his strong mental fortitude, this would have been proven several times since he entered the academy. Originally, some people wanted to go up and greet him, but when they thought of what happened tonight, they gave up. Offending Lu Yintong wasn't enough, and now there was also Jiang Zhuan. Although the two of them were the ones who fell out, as long as Jiang Zhuan calmed down, Qi would more or less be implicated. After thinking about it, most people chose to stay away. Thousand Wine Mountain gradually quieted down. On another mountain, Elder Wensi was tidying up the ancient books that he had treasured for many years in his room. There was a thin layer of dust on the bookshelf. It was obvious that no one had touched it for a long time. Elder Wensi waved his sleeve and swept away all the dust on it. Looking at the flying dust, his eyes were a little blurred, and he muttered to himself in a low voice, "That's right. It's been a long time since someone came to peek. Knock, knock." There was a knock on the door. Elder Wensi put away his thoughts and looked up. The door opened, and a familiar figure was leaning against the doorframe. "Hua Feng, why are you here again?" Elder Wensi secretly heaved a sigh of relief, but a trace of impatience appeared on his face. From the corner of his eye, he saw Elder Hua Feng holding a wine pot in his hand. "Go back and drink by yourself." As Elder Wensi spoke, he was about to chase him away. "Why are you wandering around so late at night?" He walked over and was about to close the door when he smelled a strong smell of alcohol. It was the smell of Elder Hua Feng. Elder Wensi frowned in disdain. "Why are you drinking so much?" "Let me say this first. I don't accept drunkards, Wensi." Elder Hua Feng suddenly spoke. He wasn't drunk at all. He slowly exhaled. "Tell me, why hasn't that scourge appeared yet?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1180. Elder Wensi's heart skipped a beat. He took a closer look at him and found that his face was normal. His eyes were clear, and he didn't look drunk at all, and a strong smell of alcohol seemed to be coming from his clothes. The wine pot was empty, but it seemed that the wine didn't enter his intestines. Instead, it spilled out. Elder Wensi grabbed his arm and pulled him into the room, closing the door behind him. After confirming that there was no one around, Elder Wensi looked at him. "You came here today to talk to me about this?" Elder Hua Feng found a chair and sat down. He frowned, as if he couldn't figure it out. Say, she had already entered Fangzhou City that day. Logically speaking, no matter how much she likes to play, she should have come back after so long, right? But why? Why is there no sign of her? For this reason, he specially waited for a few days in Fangzhou, but until now, she still hadn't appeared. The more time passed, the more Elder Hua Feng couldn't let go. So he came to Elder Wensi to ask for his opinion. She has always been like this. Her temper is unpredictable, and she might have been delayed by something at the last minute. Besides, even if she returned to Fangzhou, no one said that she must return to the academy. Elder Wensi sat down next to him. Maybe she left again? Elder Hua Feng's lips moved, and he couldn't help but curse in a low voice. That little heartless girl. She had already arrived in Fangzhou. With her ability, she would definitely know that it was him and Wensi who were there that day. She ran away without a trace for a few years, and when she came back, she didn't even see me. I don't know where the rules are. Elder Wensi glanced at him meaningfully. When has she ever had the slightest connection with the word rules? Bang! Elder Hua Feng slammed the wine pot on the table. If she doesn't come back, then so be it. Without her, this old man can still drink a few more pots of wine. Elder Wensi couldn't be bothered to expose him. Looking at his bored expression, he knew that no matter how much he drank, he wouldn't be happy. She has her own thoughts. When she wants to come back, she will naturally come back. What's the hurry? Elder Wensi smiled. Didn't you just accept a disciple recently? Teach her well. She's not even our disciple, so why waste your time here? Elder Huafeng glanced at the bookshelf next to him with infinite disdain. Then why did you deliberately release those unique copies? Other than her, no one else would dare to steal books from you. You, Elder Wincy choked. Hurting each other was the most annoying. Besides, didn't you also take in a disciple? Both Luo Shishir and Zhuo Sheng are good seedlings, especially Luo Shishir. In the future, she'll definitely be ranked in the top 10 of the Ascension rankings. Half of that girl's thoughts are on that brat Chu Yu. Elder Wincy couldn't help but tease. However, Chu Yu's talent in this area seems to be pretty good. We didn't notice it before. They already knew that Chu Luiyue had defeated Lu Ziyan, and they were all very surprised. The fact that he was able to fight above his level was too telling. Back then, he only said that he was a rank 7 warrior and didn't reveal anything else. Who could have guessed it? However, it seemed that he was going to specialize in celestial physician. Elder Wincy shrugged. That old thing Wan Zheng got lucky. It's rare to see such a genius with spirituality. The two sat facing each other and were quiet for a while. Immediately, the two looked at each other. Huafeng, don't you think that Chu Yu is a bit similar to her? The moon was high in the sky. Soon, it was time to leave Thousand Wine Mountain. Chu Luiyue swallowed the last force and slowly opened his eyes. It wouldn't be long before she could break through. Turning his head to look, half of Dumpling's body was already soaked in the spring water. The water was bubbling, and it looked very comfortable. Chu Luiyue grabbed its wings and lifted it up. Dumpling was originally enjoying itself, but it was suddenly interrupted and couldn't help but be resentful. Chu Luiyue pretended not to see it and shook it like a rag. Not today. She had just come out of Pengmin Mountain. Even if she wanted to come again, she couldn't choose today. Wouldn't that be deliberately making things difficult for the elders? Besides, Debao had deliberately told her not to do anything when she left. She had a hunch that as long as she secretly did something here, Debao would definitely know immediately. At that time, what awaited her wouldn't be a good result. I'll think of a way another day. The wet dumpling could only agree. Although the force she devoured now wasn't enough, she could barely accumulate it. When the time was right, she would completely activate the bloodline power together. When Chu Luiyue walked to the foot of the mountain, she looked back. Because she had already walked out of the barrier, the scene at the top of the mountain couldn't be seen clearly. Perhaps there were still elders refining there, or perhaps the power of Tianlei in the spring was still increasing. She retracted her gaze and left with Dumpling. For the next period of time, Chu Luiyue lived very peacefully. During the day, she studied the medical skills and alchemy that Elder Wan Zheng gave her, and at night, she brought Debao to Thousand Wine Mountain to cultivate. Of course, before going to Thousand Wine Mountain, Debao would still come on time to spar with her. Perhaps it was because the incident between Lu Yintong and Jiang Zhuan on the first day was too big, so not many people went to Thousand Wine Mountain during this period of time. This undoubtedly made things much easier for Chu Luiyue. 10 days later, she successfully broke through to middle stage, 7th stage. It seemed that everything was progressing smoothly. However, as time passed, Chu Luiyue became more and more anxious, because she still couldn't think of a way to stay in Thousand Wine Mountain all day. Every day, Dumpling could only rely on the little time at night to accumulate power. More importantly, the power of heavenly lightning stored in the spring would only appear during the time of the prohibition. And that was the key to activating Dumpling's bloodline power. Bang! Halfway up the mountain, Chu Luiyue slapped her hand, and the pills and medicine cauldron quickly flew up. She quickly pulled them back and put them into a jade box. Click! The remnants of the rich medicinal fragrance spread out. Master! Chu Luiyue walked over and presented the jade box with both hands. Elder Wan Zheng stroked his beard in satisfaction and took the jade box. I didn't expect you to choose this for your first pill refinement. As he spoke, he opened the jade box, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Actually, when Chu Luiyue and Lu Ziyan challenged each other, He saw it clearly from the Dongwang bell tower. He already knew that his new disciple's talent and ability in pill refinement were stronger than he expected. However, when he saw this pill, he was still shocked and overjoyed. You succeeded in refining a superior grade, 8 pill on your first try. Moreover, you did every step very well. How rare. He looked at Chu Luiwei with emotion. It won't be long before you can try refining a grade 9 pill. Chu Luiwei chuckled, took out the medical book, and handed it over. Elder Wanzheng was stunned. What are you? Chu Luiwei paused. This student has finished reading this book, so I'll return it to you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1181. You finished reading it. Elder Wanzheng asked in shock. You've memorized all the prescriptions in the book? Chu Luiwei nodded. She had finished reading it a few days ago, but she only had time to return the book today. Some of the prescriptions were for grade 8 and grade 9. They were all high-quality elixir prescriptions. Elder Wanzheng looked at her suspiciously. I know you have a photographic memory, but you've understood all the grade 9 prescriptions? The difference between grade 8 and grade 9 was not as simple as a grade 8 elixir. A grade 9 elixir required several times more herbs than a grade 8 elixir. The process was complicated and it required a lot of techniques and other aspects. It was not easy to break through from a grade 8 celestial physician to a grade 9 one. Usually a grade 8 celestial physician would have to put in a lot of effort to understand the grade 9 prescriptions. It had only been 10 days, and he had already mastered all of them? Chu Luiwei met his gaze and smiled. Master, if you don't believe me, you can test me. Elder Wanzheng took the book and asked a few questions. Chu Luiwei answered all of them fluently. Elder Wanzheng looked at her, and the corner of his eyes twitched. You've seen the prescriptions in the book before? Chu Luiwei pondered for a moment. I've seen 5 of them before. It was her first time reading the rest of the books. But she had still managed to understand all of them in such a short time. Elder Wanzheng felt very conflicted. When he saw Chu Luiwei successfully fusing the elixir the other day, he knew she was not far from becoming a grade 9 celestial physician. But this was a little too. Master, what's wrong? Chu Luiwei asked when she saw his strange expression. Elder Wanzheng held the cauldron and waved his hand. Nothing. I'm just lamenting how it feels to have a genius disciple. Chu Luiwei was speechless. Brat, you're still unknown even now. You're simply... Elder Wanzheng looked at Chu Luiwei with a faint gaze. He had been in Lingxiao College for many years and had seen many students. Those who could enter this place were naturally all geniuses. However, even geniuses had differences in strength, and Chu Luiwei was undoubtedly one of the best. In fact, until now, he still didn't know much about his new disciple's background. If he really came from some aristocratic family, with such talent, his reputation should have spread far and wide. Chu Luiwei lowered his eyes slightly. That doesn't seem to be the case. Her title as the Princess of the Yuntian Tower seemed to be quite famous outside recently. But of course, he couldn't say that. Have you ever tried to refine a 9th grade medicinal pill? Elder Wanzheng asked. Chu Luiwei shook his head. After her rebirth, her strength had not been restored, so she had not done so. Elder Wanzheng recalled the medicinal pill that she had just refined. The color was uniform and the medicinal fragrance was rich. It could be said to be of superior quality. Your aura seems to be stronger than before. Because Chu Luiwei had been carrying a yuan item that concealed her aura, even Elder Wanzheng couldn't clearly determine her current level. Chu Luiwei nodded with a smile. I've just broken through to the intermediate stage of a 7th grade. I see. Elder Wanzheng pondered for a moment before smashing his fist into his other palm. He seemed to be itching for action as he asked, What's the matter? Since you've broken through, why don't you try to refine a 9th grade medicinal pill? Chu Luiwei was stunned for a moment, but she didn't refuse. I'll listen to you, Master. Elder Wanzheng was very happy to hear that she had agreed. Don't worry. This is just a try. It doesn't matter if you don't succeed. Since you've finished reading that book, there are some inferior ninth grade medicinal pills in it. Do you like any of them? Chu Liwei thought for a moment and chose a simpler one. I think that the 9 Golden Crossing pill is not bad. 9 Golden Crossing pill? Not bad, not bad. That medicinal pill can help 8th grade cultivators break through their bottleneck and reach the 9th grade. If you can refine it, you can keep it for yourself in the future. Elder Wan Zheng felt that this was a good choice and immediately agreed. Its refining method is considered relatively simple among the 9th grade pills. It's just right for me to use it for practice. However, there are a few special medicinal herbs that I don't have here. You can go to the Medicine Wind Valley to get some. Chu Liwei wanted to say that she had those medicinal herbs, but after thinking for a moment, she swallowed those words. In any case, she still had the 100,000 points that Elder Wan Zheng had given her. She hadn't used them yet, and she had been in the academy for a while now. She wanted to take this opportunity to take a look at the Medicine Wind Valley. Yes, Elder Wan Zheng confirmed the medicinal herbs that she needed and explained the location of the Medicine Wind Valley in detail before letting her go. Chu Liwei replied respectfully and headed to the Medicine Wind Valley alone. Lingxiao College was huge. The Medicine Wind Valley was a place where the academy specialized in growing medicinal herbs. It even occupied a large area. Chu Liwei spent a full hour before she finally arrived. As the name suggested, the Medicine Wind Valley was a canyon. On both sides were undulating mountain peaks. Only in the middle was a concave and winding canyon. Within the canyon, including the mountain peaks on both sides, there were all kinds of medicinal herbs planted. Chu Liwei stood on one of the mountain peaks and looked down. Although she was mentally prepared, she still couldn't help but be amazed. On the neatly divided plots of land, there were all kinds of treasures of heaven and earth. The colors were gorgeous, and there were all kinds of charm. The air was filled with the rich smell of various herbs mixed together, making people feel intoxicated just by smelling it. Among them, she could see some elders and students. This scene was unexpectedly harmonious and moving. In the middle of the canyon was an empty space. An old man had set up a bed and was lying on it, looking very carefree. Occasionally, someone would go over. Chu Liwei looked for a while and understood. That elder should be in charge of looking after the medicinal herbs of the Medicine Wind Valley. Everyone who wanted to exchange medicinal herbs from the Medicine Wind Valley had to go to him to register. Chu Liwei flew down. The Medicine Wind Valley was huge, and there were countless types of medicinal herbs planted. Hence, it wasn't easy to accurately find the few medicinal herbs one wanted. Fortunately, Chu Liwei had already roughly determined the location of 3 medicinal herbs at the beginning. Hence, she found them quickly after going down. There were still 2 left. She started to slowly search for them among the medicinal herbs scattered all over the mountain. Being surrounded by the rich medicinal fragrance, Chu Liwei couldn't help but take a deep breath. She felt much more refreshed and comfortable. Chu Liwei didn't lack medicinal herbs. After all, Taizu and Rongxiu's belongings were all with her. However, looking around, she still saw some precious medicinal herbs that she didn't have. Treasures of heaven and earth that were hard to come by outside seemed to be very common here. The #1 academy in the Divine Ruins world lived up to its name. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1182. Some people would look over from time to time, as if they had recognized Chu Liwei. Chu Liwei ignored all of them and continued to search for the herb she needed. After looking around, she found one. However, she could not find the remaining bone-melting treasured leaf after searching for a long time. The Medicine Wind Valley was really too big, and there were too many types of herbs. The bone-melting treasured leaf was only the size of a fingernail, and was very difficult to find. However, this thing had always liked to grow towards the sun, and there was a high chance that it could be found on the sun side of the mountain. Chu Liwei thought for a while, and walked towards the mountain on the left. After walking for a long distance, she finally smelled that familiar faint, fishy smell. She was overjoyed. It should be in front. However, Just as she was about to take a few quick steps forward to retrieve the bone-melting treasured leaf, a transparent enchantment suddenly appeared in front of her, emitting a faint glow. She stopped in her tracks. "Kid, that is not a place you can go." An old and low voice sounded, as if he had just woken up, and there was even a hint of laziness in it. Chu Liwa looked at the faintly discernible silver lines on the barrier, as well as that astonishing pressure, and tactfully stopped and looked back. Her current location was very remote, and there was no one around. Looking around, those words seemed to have come from the elder lying in the middle of the Medicine Wind Valley in the distance. There was a very long distance between the two of them, and that elder was still lying on that small broken wooden bed, motionless, as if he was sleeping soundly. However, that voice was very clear, as if the person was right beside her. "Kid, what are you looking at?" That voice had a hint of ridicule. Chu Luiyue was sure that the person who spoke was indeed that person. She was secretly surprised. The Medicine Wind Valley was so big, but everything was obviously under the control of that elder. This huge barrier should be his handiwork. She cupped her fists in the direction of that elder and bowed respectfully. "Student Chu Yu greets elder. En, Chu Yu?" Hearing her words, the elder's voice carried a bit of surprise. Then, Chu Luiyue saw that the elder who had been lying motionless finally sit up. He covered his eyebrows with one hand and glanced over. Even though she couldn't see the other party's face and expression clearly, Chu Luiyue was very sure that the other party was sizing her up with curiosity. "You're the brat who was sent to Pengmin Mountain after just one day?" Chu Luiyue. It turned out that she was already so famous in Lingxiao College. Student is ashamed. She lowered her head slightly. Just now, this student only wanted to take a few pieces of bone-melting precious leaves. "I didn't know that I couldn't go there. I didn't mean to offend you. Please forgive me." "It's your first time here, so it's normal that you don't know about this." The elder didn't seem to blame Chu Luiyue. Instead, he laughed. "However, it seems that Wan Zheng is very satisfied with you. He actually let you come to the Medicine Wind Valley so quickly." The elders were obviously familiar with each other. Chu Liwei didn't know how to respond for a moment, so she obediently quieted down. The location of the bone-melting precious leaves is indeed strange, but it's still within the boundary. Go and take it, but don't cross the boundary. There was a subtle fluctuation behind her. Chu Liwei looked back and saw that the light on the boundary had dimmed a lot. It was obvious that the elder had deliberately reduced the power of the boundary. Feeling that the pressure that made her chest feel uncomfortable had been greatly reduced, Chu Luiyue breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. She immediately took a few steps forward and pushed aside a patch of barren grass. Sure enough, she found a few stalks of bone-melting precious leaves in the narrow crack under a huge rock. The leaves were dark green in color and were only the size of a fingernail. The edges were jagged and covered with a faint layer of white frost. They looked crystal clear like green jade. If one looked carefully, one could see the fine veins in the leaves, which looked like a skeleton. Chu Liwei carefully took a few leaves. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew. The fine strands of hair on her forehead fell down, making her cheeks slightly itchy. She straightened her back and inadvertently looked forward. Suddenly, her eyes focused. After the power of the boundary was greatly reduced, the scene that was originally blurry became much clearer. This also allowed her to see the scenery that she had not noticed before. In the distance, there seemed to be a dark blue lake. The lake water was clear, and there was a faint layer of white mist on the surface of the lake, adding a bit of hazy beauty. However, this was not the reason why Chu Luiyue was so shocked. She frowned slightly, her eyes fixed on the translucent pink flowers blooming on the surface of the lake, and waves rose in her heart. That was dancing lotus. Large patches of dancing lotus swayed gently on the surface of the lake, as if it was a paradise. The dancing lotus was extremely precious and difficult to cultivate. Even Chu Luiyue did not dare to guarantee that she could cultivate a dancing lotus. Thinking back to the time when she wanted to get that one, she went through many twists and turns, and now there were so many of them here. Just as Chu Luiyue was shocked, A wave of light flashed in front of her eyes, and a strong pressure attacked her. She suddenly came back to her senses and quickly took a few steps back. When she looked up again, the boundary had returned to its original appearance. However, the lake and the blooming dancing lotuses that he had seen just now had already become blurry and disappeared. For a moment, Chu Luiyue almost suspected that she was hallucinating. However, the faintly discernible fragrance lingering on the tip of her nose reminded her that everything was real. "Kid, you have taken the things, and it's time to go." The elder's voice fell in her ears. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips, retracted her gaze, and turned to walk in the direction of the elder. After passing through half of the Medicine Wind Valley, Chu Luiyue finally arrived at the center. She bowed respectfully. "Student greets elder." Elder Meng, Ye's hair was a little messy. He was dressed in a white robe, barefoot, and sat lazily on the small, broken wooden bed. One leg was stretched out, the other was bent, and his elbow was on his knee, very casually. He opened a pair of small eyes and looked up and down at Chu Luiyue. "TSK, you look quite obedient, but your courage is very big." He chuckled and asked ambiguously, "Did you see anything just now?" Chu Luiyue paused and shook her head. Student didn't see anything. "Tisk." Elder Meng Yi picked up a piece of wood in his hand and knocked it directly on Chu Luiyue's forehead. "You're so young, and you're still not telling the truth. This old man won't eat you." Chu Luiyue hissed and answered honestly, "I'm sorry." Student knows her mistake. Student just saw a patch of blooming dancing lotus. "Is there anything else?" "No." Elder Meng Yi was satisfied and snorted softly. "That's more like it. In this Medicine Wind Valley, no one is allowed to be secretive with this old man. Do you understand?" Chu Luiyue said sincerely, "Thank you for your teachings, elder. By the way, you don't have to tell Wan Zheng about this when you go back." Chu Luiyue was stunned. Why? Elder Meng Yi snorted softly. "That garden is—" Forget it. Why are you asking these questions? Just remember this old man's words." Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly jumped. Her garden? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1183. The elders and students of the academy all needed herbs from the Medicine Wind Valley to refine pills. In the entire academy, only one person had her own garden. That student whose name was erased from the Azure Sky roll. In that case, that herb garden belonged to that person. Chu Luiyue thought to herself. Previously, she had only heard Zhong Sun mention that the dean had specially dug out a piece of land from the Medicine Wind Valley for that student to use as her herb garden, and that place was off limits to others. Chu Luiyue had originally thought that it was hidden in some secret place, but she did not expect that it was right beside the Medicine Wind Valley. It was just that the elders had used a barrier to separate it, so the people in the Medicine Wind Valley were unable to detect it. Chu Luiyue recalled that when she had first arrived, she had stood at the top of the mountain and looked around. At that time, she did not see any extra boundaries. Now that she thought about it, that herb garden should have been concealed by some special means. Originally, Chu Luiyue did not have much interest in that herb garden, but when she saw the large expanse of blooming dancing lotuses, she suddenly felt extremely curious and wanted to investigate. She also could not say where this feeling came from. It was as if there was something hidden inside that had an inexplicable attraction to her. But these were only thoughts that flashed through Chu Luiyue's mind. She lowered her eyes. Elder is right. This student will definitely keep it in mind. Elder Meng Yi liked this attitude very much. He laughed mischievously. "All right, you don't need to be nervous. You are Wan Zheng's disciple after all. This face has to be given. Right, let's calculate the points for these things." He pointed to the side with his mouth. Only then did Chu Luiyue see a green jade token hanging at the head of the bed. Thinking about it, it should be his. "Just put your black jade token on it." Chu Luiyue obediently did as she was told. The moment the two tokens touched, a white light flashed. Chu Luiyue clearly saw that the number on it had changed from 6 to 5. She immediately felt her heart ache. So expensive. These few herbs were not ordinary items, so the price was naturally not cheap. Fortunately, these were given by Elder Wanzheng, so they were still acceptable. In the future, she would definitely have to pay for it herself. Chu Liwei took back her black jade token and bowed to bid farewell. After her figure disappeared from the Medicine Wind Valley, Elder Meng Yi stroked his beard and lay back down. He crossed his legs and swung his feet. Why does he look so familiar? Chu Liwei returned with the herbs. Elder Wanzheng, when he saw her return, he smiled. Everything went well. Chu Liwei said, I didn't let Master down. I brought everything back. Elder Wanzheng counted the items and nodded in satisfaction. He then asked, What are you doing? Medicine Wind Valley. Chu Liwei pondered for a while and said seriously, Sect is a place. Ha 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 ha, Elder Wanzheng laughed loudly. Not. It is indeed a place full of spirit and beauty. Chu Liwei's eyes flickered slightly. To be able to cultivate so many heavenly treasures at the same time, the existence of the Medicine Wind Valley itself was a miracle. Only the Lingxiao College, with its 10,000 years of heritage, could have such a deep and long heritage. There are a lot of good things in there. If you want to refine pills in the future, just go there and take the herbs. Chu Liwei's eyes lit up, but quickly dimmed again. Elder Wanzheng sharply caught the change in her expression and couldn't help but ask, Why? Is there a problem? Chu Liwei smiled embarrassedly. Many of the herbs in the Medicine Wind Valley require a lot of points, so it was because of this. Elder Wanzheng reacted and waved his hand casually. I thought it was something serious. Isn't it just points? As long as you can quickly break through to become a 9th grade celestial physician and enter the green cloud role, I will definitely prepare a generous gift for you. During this period, if you need any herbs, just let me know. They're all public funds. Deduct them from me. Or points. With such a rare genius disciple, who knew how many people would be envious to death. He had waited for so long and finally found a good disciple. How could he not do his best to nurture her? In comparison, wasn't it normal to waste some points and use some medicinal herbs? His heroic words immediately made Chu Liwei energized. Master, are you serious? Elder Wanzheng pretended to be angry and glared at her. How could Master lie to you when you say that? Don't worry. Chu Liwei smiled until her eyes curved into crescents and her starry eyes sparkled. Then I will thank you in advance, Master. Elder Wanzheng waved his hand. Come, let me see if you can refine a 9th grade pill. Chu Liwei nodded, walked to the side of the cauldron, and arranged the herbs in order. Bang! She slapped her hands on the mouth of the cauldron. 2 clusters of red flames instantly surged out. The entire cauldron was filled. Boom! The flames burned fiercely. The surrounding temperature also rose by a lot in an instant. Chu Liwei took a deep breath and calmed herself down. Then she methodically placed the herbs in one by one to refine. All kinds of herbs gathered in the flames of the cauldron. Elder Wanzheng looked at her smooth and skillful movements from the side and felt a wave of excitement in his heart. When he said that he wanted Chu Yu to enter the green cloud role within 2 to 3 months, many people expressed their doubts. This time, he must let his precious disciple blind their eyes. He yelled heroically, You're so lucky. Disciple, refine well. Refine without worry. With Master backing you, you can refine however you want. Digression. 3 seconds of silence for Elder Wanzheng. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1184. With that, Chu Liwei was relieved. Such an opportunity was hard to come by. Of course, she had to cherish it. Hence, she quickly recalled the herb she had seen in the Medicine Wind Valley today. After doing some calculations, she finally came to a conclusion. She had struck it rich this time. Even if it was because Elder Wanzheng was willing to spend so much money, she had to refine the pills properly this time. Thousands of miles away, in the dark feather abyss, Surrounded by mountains, it was verdant and rich. In the middle was an azure water body. Countless trees grew in it, adding to the beautiful greenery. The sky and water merged into one. The tree branches swayed, and water poured down from one direction, forming a faint silver waterfall. It was like a river flowing through the forest. It was magnificent and wonderful. This was an extremely special place in the Divine Ruins world. It was said that thousands of years ago, there was once a king of equipment refinement who had successfully refined a king's source tool here. It was a pity that he had exhausted all his strength and essence chi. Not long after he had refined it, he had died. That king's source tool had been lost in the dark feather abyss since then, and its whereabouts were unknown. For thousands of years, countless cultivators from the Divine Ruins world had come here. They had dug 3 feet into the ground to find that king's source tool. However, the dark feather abyss was full of danger. Cultivators had died here one after another, but no one had found that item. Gradually, the number of people who came here decreased. However, in recent months, strange phenomena had occurred in the dark feather abyss. Many people guessed that the king's source tool was about to be born. Hence, everyone was shocked. Many forces were eager to take advantage of this opportunity to take it for themselves. Originally, the Spirit Firmament Academy rarely participated in such matters. However, it was different this time. That was because the king of equipment refinement who had died here back then was from Lingxiao College. Hence, this time, a team formed by several elders and students had made preparations and come here. Rongxiu and the others have been waiting here for a full 10 days. During this process, there were still people coming from all over. Some people wanted to retreat when they saw Lingxiao College's team. In the end, they tactfully chose to leave. But there was still a part that remained. It was true that Lingxiao College was the #1 college in the Divine Ruins world. And it was also true that Rongxiu and the others were backed by extraordinary first-rate families. But even so, it was not enough to dismiss everyone. After all, the Yuntian Tower was not the only first-rate family in the Divine Ruins. Moreover, with benefits in front of them, who would care about such things? At this time, everyone had gathered at Dark Feather's Abyss, waiting for the appearance of the legendary King Yuan device. It has already been so long. Other than the occasional strange phenomenon in the sky, there has been no reaction from below. I don't know when that treasure will appear. A young woman's voice came from the crowd of Lingxiao College students. It's a king-grade origin tool after all, so it's only natural that it would take a lot of effort. He had already waited for thousands of years. What was a little bit more to him? Someone beside him consoled him. Yeah, it has been a long time since a Yuan tool of this level has appeared in the Divine Ruins world. Moreover, this belongs to a senior elder of our academy. No matter how long it takes, we still have to wait. Not only do we have to wait, but we also have to successfully bring that thing back. Otherwise, wouldn't this trip be a waste? It would be embarrassing for the academy. They discussed in low voices. However, Rongxiu did not say anything from the beginning to the end. He just stood at the side and waited patiently. He wore a snow-white brocade robe and stood tall and straight. He seemed to be quietly admiring the scenery of Dark Feather's Abyss. But if one looked closely, they would see that the surrounding heaven and earth origin force was quickly and silently surging into his body. This was something that his companions had already noticed on the way here. But every time they saw it, they could not help but feel shocked. Only a person who had completely stepped into the god level could do this. But he was still able to do it so smoothly and casually. It was so easy that it was hard for others to even feel jealous. When a person was slightly more outstanding than the people around them, they would often be envied and even ostracized. But if the difference was so great that they could only look up to him, then those emotions would turn into admiration and admiration. Rongxiu was the second type. It was not that no one wanted to surpass him, but it was just too difficult. Rongxiu has left the academy for a few years, right? I didn't expect his strength to increase so quickly. Even some of the academy's elders might not be his match now, right? Didn't they say that the Yuntian Tower has been in chaos these past few years? I thought he would be busy dealing with these matters and would not have the time and energy to cultivate properly. Who knew? Now that the Yuntion Tower is in his hands, his strength has increased greatly. How'd he do it? You're asking me? If I knew, would I still be like this? The group of people roared with laughter, and the atmosphere was quite harmonious. But sometimes, there are people who like to ruin such an atmosphere. He just broke through to the god level a step earlier. What's there to be suspicious about? Wei Shiping's face was cold, and his voice was laced with sarcasm. The surrounding people gradually quieted down. Many people looked at each other and secretly exchanged glances. A young woman smiled and said, "That's easy. Wei Shiping, you're a famous genius cultivator. Don't tell me you don't know how difficult it is to break through to the god level a step earlier." They were about the same age, and they had entered the academy at the same time. But now, Rong Xiao had broken through to the god level, and they could only look up to him. The gap between them was getting wider and wider. How could they not be moved? Wei Shiping gritted his teeth and did not reply. He thought to himself, when I have the chance, I'll teach Rong Xiao a lesson. This time, when the King's Source Tool appeared, I must get it before Rong Xiao. Rong Xiao was completely oblivious to all the discussions. He kept devouring the force of heaven and earth around him to strengthen his cultivation base. At the same time, he looked down at the scenery below and around him. His handsome and devilish face was expressionless. No one knew what he was thinking. Rumble. A loud noise suddenly came from the sky. The originally noisy discussions all disappeared. Everyone raised their heads to look. In the originally cloudless sky, dark clouds were rapidly gathering. The wind howled and thunder rumbled. The sky quickly darkened. It's for real this time. That thing is about to appear. On a mountain peak not far away, a burly man with dark skin laughed. Just in time. Let me see how big of a commotion this King's Source Tool can cause. Rong Xiao looked up as well. His deep eyes were calm and unfathomable. Rumble. Tianlei landed. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1185. The waterfall below gradually stopped flowing. A whirlpool appeared in the center of the blue water. As time passed, the whirlpool gradually expanded and swallowed all the trees in the surroundings silently. At the same time, the dark clouds in the sky seemed to be attracted by some kind of force and started to rotate slowly, forming a huge storm. Between heaven and earth, there was darkness. The wind howled and the pressure was heavy. The people waiting on the peaks of the dark feather abyss were all energized. Judging from the situation, the King Yuan artifact was about to appear. When all the water in the water is sucked dry, that will be the time when the King Yuan artifact appears. At that time, we must act quickly and snatch the artifact before anyone else. Elder Shu Feng instructed seriously. Everyone nodded their heads and waited for the battle to begin. Time passed slowly. Under the whirlpool, there seemed to be a black hole that kept swallowing everything around it. The storm in the sky also gradually came down. Countless pairs of eyes stared at this scene. At a certain moment, just as the whirlpool was about to disappear, the storm hit. The two collided. Boom! A loud sound came from within. The next moment, a dazzling light burst out from within. Now, Elder Shu Feng gave the order and took the lead to charge out. The people behind him also moved out. At the same time, the people waiting at the dark feather abyss all rushed over. Lingxiao College was actually the fastest. Seeing that they were about to take the lead, the others started to panic. The dark-skinned, brawny man who spoke earlier suddenly shouted in a deep voice, "Everyone, let's join forces." Elder Shu Feng and the others' hearts sank when they heard this. Sure enough, the man then shouted again, "Hey!" This treasure was left behind by the people of the Spirit Firmament Academy back then. If they want to snatch it, it will be much easier for them than for us. Why don't we join forces to defeat them first, and then decide who the treasure belongs to? His voice was deep and full of energy. As soon as he opened his mouth, his voice spread out between the heavens and the earth. Many people hesitated for a moment and looked at each other with complicated expressions. Elder Shu Feng shouted angrily, "Golden Wing Sect, how dare you?" The man laughed out loud. "I've already dared to steal from you in front of you. What's there to be afraid of?" Their Golden Wing Sect was also a first-rate sect in the Divine Ruins world. Moreover, they had a deep foundation and were full of confidence. Lingxiao College had a prestigious status, but it was just a college after all. It was true that there were many experts, but it was still different from the orthodox sects and aristocratic families. After all, it was impossible for Lingxiao College to have all the elders and students risk their lives for the school. Moreover, even though the treasure that had appeared today was a rarely seen king-grade origin tool, it definitely wasn't enough for Lingxiao College to fall out with everyone because of it. That was why they dared to snatch it so brazenly. In addition, there were other people present, so they were even more unscrupulous. "Everyone, what are you hesitating for? Since you're already here, do you intend to watch the treasure fall into the hands of others?" This sentence finally made the people from the other sects and clans make up their minds. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Those who had originally planned to charge toward the center had all turned around and were heading toward the people from Lingxiao College. Other than Lingxiao College, there was also the Four Directions sect here. Their numbers added up to almost 180 people, which was several times more than Lingxiao Academy's side. Even if the people from Lingxiao College were all quite strong, they wouldn't be able to withstand the siege of so many people. After all, if they dared to openly oppose them, their strength wouldn't be too weak. If they were to fight against them, they would definitely lose today's battle. Several groups of people surrounded the Spirit Firmament Academy, trapping them within. Elder Shu Feng's mind raced as he looked at Rongxiao. "Rongxiao, we'll hold him back. Find an opportunity to retrieve that item." Rongxiao nodded slightly. "Huh, do you think it's that easy to dodge?" The man sneered and charged toward Rongxiao. "I'll take you on first." Rongxiao raised his eyes slightly. His expression was cold, and there was no emotion in the depths of his eyes. In the next moment, his figure suddenly vanished on the spot. What? Not only the man who was about to fight Rongxiao, but also the other people who were watching were all shocked. They weren't shocked that Rongxiao knew how to teleport, but they were shocked that he could still move so easily and freely under such strong suppression. There were quite a number of great gods present. Even if they were all great gods, they might not be able to escape so quickly. The next moment, Rongxiao appeared behind the crowd. He was only a short distance away from the dazzling ball of light. The man from the Golden Wing sect was the first to react. He shouted, "Stop him." Elder Shu Feng ordered, "Let's go, go." The two sides clashed and quickly descended into a chaotic battle. A few cold gusts of wind came from behind, but Rongxiao did not turn around. He quickly dodged them and easily avoided them. In the blink of an eye, he was already at the location of the storm. Standing there, everything was presented clearly in front of his eyes. The water from before had disappeared, and there was only a huge black vortex spinning slowly above the swamp-like wetland. It was dark and bottomless. Looking down from above, it looked like a giant beast with its bloody mouth wide open. Once one fell into it, endless torture and death awaited them. At this moment, the storm formed by the gathering dark clouds in the sky had already connected with the vortex. The grayish-black storm was also gradually being swallowed by the black hole. At the point where the two connected, there was a ball of light that was emitting a dazzling light. It was only the size of a person's head, and its light was soft and bright. It was exuding a vast and divine aura. Rongxiao stared at it, and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. This aura, it doesn't seem to be a king-grade yuan device. Die! Rongxiao's momentary daze gave the people behind him an opportunity to attack. The difference in numbers was too great. Even though the people from Lingxiao College had already done their best, they were gradually at a disadvantage. Some people took the opportunity to break through their defense line and went straight for Rongxiao. Sensing the cold aura behind him, Rongshio's expression turned cold, and a murderous intent flashed across his eyes. He did not turn around. He only raised his hand and waved it. A golden light flew out. It formed an extremely sturdy barrier around him. The muscular man, who was originally confident of victory, suddenly changed his expression. At this moment, Rongshio had already rushed forward and grabbed the ball of light. Puffed. Elder Shu Feng could not fight against 4 hands with 2 fists, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he immediately noticed the commotion on Rongshio's side, and he couldn't help but be elated. He endured the bloody smell in his mouth and hollered, "Activate the formation." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1186. The elders at the side moved simultaneously. Chi-chi, rays of brilliant light flew out and intertwined in midair. In the blink of an eye, they formed a huge Xian formation. A faint suppressive aura spread out from it. The surrounding space was distorted, and several black spatial cracks appeared. "They're leaving." Suddenly, someone exclaimed loudly. The man from the Golden Wings sect looked at Rongshio with anger and jealousy. However, for some reason, he did not move forward, as if he was afraid of something. Hearing that shout, he hesitated for a moment and turned around. Destroy their Xian formation. Everyone knew that once the Xian formation was completed, the people from Lingxiao College would be able to escape quickly. At that time, it would be even more difficult for them to stop them. Everyone attacked together. Elder Shu Feng and the rest did not care about their own safety and increased the speed of building the Xian formation. The Xian formation was complicated and beautiful. As the patterns on it were completed, the aura on it became stronger. "I'd like to see how you're going to go back today." With a low shout, the man for the Golden Wings sect suddenly leaped up. He held a huge black axe in his hand and slashed it down fiercely. Crack! A crack appeared on the Xian formation. Terrifying energy surged out from the crack. It scattered in all directions. The faces of Elder Shu Feng and the others turned pale. If the Xian formation was destroyed, they would not be able to rush back to the academy in time. With so many people attacking them, they would definitely be defeated. He was furious and looked at the man. "Jinlei, do you really want to go against Lingxiao College?" Jinlei laughed. "Elder Shu Feng, please don't misunderstand. At the end of the day, all we want is that King Source tool. As long as you hand it over, I promise to let you go immediately. Furthermore, I'll personally come and apologize to you on another day." Elder Shu Feng was so angry that he laughed. "This thing originally belonged to Lingxiao College. You've gone overboard by snatching it so brazenly. Do you still want us to hand it over?" 1,000 years have passed. Jinlei interrupted him with an arrogant look on his face. "This thing was not refined in your Spirit Firmament Academy. Even the weapon refining king from back then had fallen here. Not even his bones were left. Then, how can this treasure belong to your academy? Since it's an ownerless item, what's wrong with us snatching it? You're being unreasonable." Elder Shu shouted. "Stabilize the Xian formation." Jinlei raised the axe in his hand again. "Everyone, lend me a hand." There was already a crack in the Xian formation. If there was another crack, it would definitely collapse completely. The others also seemed to have seen a glimmer of hope. They all revealed excited expressions and poured their origin power into the axes. A terrifying power surged forth. Heaven and earth. The sweet and fishy taste in Elder Estranged Wind's mouth became even thicker. The rest of the people's Lingxiao College. Right at this moment, a golden streak of light flew over. Of the Xian were of the sun, of following this buzzing sound. The Xian formation that was on the verge of collapse quickly recovered. The golden light also quickly split into many small branches that spread to the surroundings. In an instant, it covered more than half of the Xian formation. Seeing this scene, even the people from the Spirit Firmament Academy were shocked. Rongshio had dabbled in Xian masters, but he had always been outstanding as a martial artist and an instrument refiner. Therefore, everyone had always thought that although his comprehension of Xian masters was also very good, it could not be compared to his other two talents. But now, they realized that Rong Xiao had already become a top-notch expert in Xian masters. This Xian formation was successfully constructed with the combined efforts of so many people. Rong Xiao had actually repaired the Xian formation that was on the verge of collapse with his own strength and completed the remaining parts. Wei Shiping looked at the man who was floating in midair with his clothes fluttering in the wind. His white clothes fluttered like an immortal, but he was so powerful that people could only look up to him. Rong Xiao, was the gap between them already so big? He clenched his teeth and lowered his eyes to hide the unwillingness and jealousy that flashed across his eyes. At this moment, the Xian formation was finally completed. Elder Shu Feng immediately shouted, "Open!" Following his command, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the sky above the brilliant Xian formation. "Rong Xiao, let's go!" Elder Shu Feng anxiously shouted. Rong Xiao took a step forward, and his figure quickly disappeared into the crack. Then, the Lingxiao College students followed suit. Seeing them leave one by one, Jean Lei could not help but grip the axe in his hand tightly and was about to rush forward. "Chase!" The people behind him hurriedly dissuaded him. "No, this Xian formation has torn space. The other end must be Lingxiao College. We can't go there." "That's right. We can still fight them here, but if we go to their territory, I'm afraid." Everyone was discussing and expressing their opposition. Jean Lei's face darkened. If they let them leave with the Emperor-grade Yuan tool, they would not be willing to do so. There's a special barrier outside Lingxiao College. It's heavily guarded, and no one is allowed to enter or leave as they wish. I'm guessing that they're going to return to Fangzhou first. As long as they can make it in time, it's not impossible. He looked around and scanned the crowd with his cold eyes. Suddenly, he sneered. "Have you forgotten? That's an Emperor-grade Yuan tool. Since we've already offended Lingxiao College, what's the difference?" His words made many people waver. After all, the Emperor-grade Yuan tool was too tempting. "Look, that Xian formation doesn't seem to be closed properly." Someone suddenly cried out in alarm. Everyone, including Jean Lei, looked over and saw that the crack suddenly paused just as it was about to close. Jean Lei did not hesitate at all. In a flash, he followed the person. Naturally, the people from Golden Wings sect followed closely behind. The remaining people looked at each other and hesitated for a moment. A middle-aged man suddenly shouted, "Let's go. We've already offended them. If we give up now, we'll be giving the treasure to Golden Wings sect for nothing." After saying that, he immediately moved. Everyone was already tempted. After hearing what he said, they no longer hesitated and rushed forward. Lingxiao College. Chu Luiyue was refining pills halfway up the mountain. Elder Wanzheng was standing beside him. The surroundings were quiet, and the atmosphere was tense. Chu Luiyue's previous 2 attempts had failed. This was already his 3rd attempt. However, Elder Wanzheng was not too worried. It was not easy to break through from an 8th-grade celestial physician to a 9th-grade celestial physician. If Chu Luiyue succeeded on his first try, it would be too strange. The process was very smooth, and he was about to reach the final step. Chu Luiyue held his breath and controlled the flames in the cauldron to fuse all the herbs together. Boom! The flames burned even more fiercely. However, at this moment, Elder Wanzheng's expression suddenly changed. He turned around and looked in the direction of the entrance of the college. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1187. There was quite a distance between here and there, but Elder Wanzheng was still sensitive enough to detect a dangerous aura. His brows furrowed tightly, and he was about to leave. But after taking half a step, he suddenly remembered that Chu Luiyue was refining pills beside him. He forcefully suppressed the waves in his heart. After thinking about it, he still decided to stay here and wait for Chu Luiyue to finish refining the pills. Even if the academy was really in danger, there were other elders around. It wouldn't hurt to be a little late. On the other hand, Chu Luiyue was at the crucial moment of refining the pills. It wouldn't be good if they were to interrupt her. Chu Luiyue also realized that something was wrong with him. She turned her gaze and looked at him. His face was filled with anticipation and excitement, but now it was filled with nervousness and worry. Her heart also sank slightly. "Master, what's wrong?" Elder Wanzheng quickly shook his head. "Nothing, nothing. Just concentrate on refining the pills. Master is here to help you. Don't be distracted. It's almost done." Chu Luiyue didn't believe him. She had been in the academy for quite some time, but she had never seen Elder Wanzheng with such an expression. She wanted to ask again, but after thinking about it, she held back and put her attention back on refining the pills. In the flames, a fist-sized pill had already appeared. Feeling the power contained in it, Chu Luiyue was slightly relieved. This time, she might really succeed. Although she was a 9th-grade celestial physician, she couldn't help but feel excited and happy to be able to climb up this ladder after her rebirth. Every day since she was reborn, she hoped that she could return to her peak and even become stronger. She didn't expect that the first to succeed would be a celestial physician. She held her breath and became more careful. Elder Wanzheng, who was at the side, still couldn't completely relax. From time to time, he would look in that direction. The academy's operation this time was confidential. Even some elders weren't clear about it. It showed how important this matter was to everyone. Calculating the time, they had been gone for more than 20 days. It was normal for them to return at this time. But that fluctuation, it was obviously strange and uneasy. Whoosh, whoosh. In midair, several figures flashed past. Those were obviously the elders who had sensed that something was wrong and hurried over. Elder Wanzheng slowly clenched his fists. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. She originally also wanted to concentrate on refining pills, but that subtle change in aura on Elder Wanzheng's body seriously made her unable to ignore it. She stared intently at the pill in the cauldron, carefully controlling the flame to condense it, and said, "Master, if there's really something urgent, you can go first. Anyway, I'm almost done here. That won't do. I want to see it personally." "You don't have to care about those things. Just focus on refining pills." Elder Wanzheng was very insistent. Chu Luiyue had no choice but to swallow the rest of his words. However, he was getting more and more curious. For Elder Wanzheng to be so worried, it must not be a small matter. Just now, a few elders had already flown over the sky. It seemed like they were heading towards the entrance of the academy. Could it be that someone had barged in to cause trouble? However, as soon as this thought appeared, it was dispelled by Chu Luiyue. This was Lingxiao College. Who would have the guts to cause trouble here? Wouldn't that be causing trouble for themselves? The red flame continued to burn, and the pill in it gradually condensed. A medicinal fragrance wafted from it. Elder Wanzheng's eyes lit up. He could not help but take a step forward and clasp his hands tightly in front of him. Was this about to succeed? Whoosh! Another silhouette flew across the sky. Elder Wanzheng instantly felt as if he had been hit by a bucket of cold water. It seemed that the situation was worse than expected. His brows were tightly knitted together as he stared at Chu Luiyue and the pill in front of her. He did not blink, and his heart was beating rapidly. At this moment, time seemed to pass exceptionally slowly. The medicinal fragrance of the pill was getting stronger. Chu Luiyue held her breath and activated the force in her body. It transformed into flames and surged out crazily. Buzz! A strong wave of energy circulated in the cauldron. Chu Luiyue's heart calmed down. The pill was about to be formed. She slammed her hand on the cauldron. The flame exploded. The pill in the middle became rounder and rounder. Lines and lines began to appear clearly on the surface. Chu Luiyue's lips were already a little pale. To the current her, it was indeed a little difficult to concoct a 9th-grade medicinal pill. After this round of refining, she had basically used up all her strength. In addition, she had already failed twice before, so she had even less energy left. Therefore, this pill was really hard to come by. Waves of weakness assaulted her, almost making her legs go soft. She bit the tip of her tongue and used the sharp pain to force herself to be clear-headed. The faint smell of blood spread between her lips and teeth. However, Chu Liwei did not care about that at this moment. As long as she could successfully refine the pill, Elder Wan Zheng's promise would be fulfilled. Thinking of this, she used all her strength to send the last bit of strength in her body into the cauldron and merged it with the flame. Whoosh! The pill suddenly flew up. It seemed to want to escape. Chu Liwei clenched her teeth and controlled it. As long as she could hold on a little longer, this pill would. Wan Zheng, why are you still here? Fang Zhou is already in a mess. An anxious voice suddenly sounded. It was Elder Hua Feng who had rushed over. That thing is now on Rongxiu, and it's being besieged by them. Bang! An explosive sound came from Chu Liu's cauldron. Black ashes scattered in all directions. A thick burnt smell filled the air. Chu Liu's pill was destroyed. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.